যদি সবাই ফিরে যায়, ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা সবাই ফিরে যায়, যদি গহন পথে যাওয়ার কালে কেউ ফিরে না চায়, তবে পথের কাটা তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে, তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে। যদি আলো না ধরে, ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা আলো না ধরে, যদি ঝড় বাদলে আধার রাতে দুয়ার দেয় ঘরে, তবে বজ্রানলে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা জলরে, আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা জলরে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে। একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো রে।
Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. And what has happened to the... Oh, okay, I know what's happened. So anyway, let's see how to turn this full screen. Yes. So I am late for a very interesting reason today. It's because of our viewer called Shayok Roy, who just commented on Twitter on a post of mine that Rajesh Nandi has come back on Beer Biceps, and Beer Biceps has uploaded a short podcast, a 26-minute podcast. And I was just checking that out, and I checked out about first 4 or 5 minutes of it, and it's absolutely awesome. And of course, my respect for Rajesh Nandi kind of, it did not increase or decrease, it kind of reinforced that yes, I was so right to have respect for this man, because the way he of course he did not really defend Ranveer's joke, but the way he stood by him regardless, that yes, the way the state is going after him, that's wrong. And I really wanted to do a live stream discussion of that today, but today we have already announced something else, so we will do that some other time, probably tomorrow only. We are absolutely going to discuss Rajesh Nandi and Ranveer Allahabadiya tomorrow. And of course, I have my problems with Ranveer as well. Mainly his discussion with Sandeep Balakrishna, where he said that, where he played his Hindu card. He said that, you see, I am the most Hindu I know among all my friends, and I know some Muslim friends, and therefore you see, I know, and therefore I have some sort of claim to authority here regarding the history of Islamic invasions, or whether we have anything to fear today as Hindus or not. That was an insanely wrong thing to say, and especially riding on your Hindu religiosity to claim those things, if at all gods exist, they are not going to forgive that kind of stuff. And Rajesh Nandi, the way he has started this podcast is absolutely fascinating as well. And people who have not come from religious backgrounds will know about this, that or the people who have in fact even come from religious backgrounds but have grown up in this very modern setting, where people with all smiles all the time, talking about very, very abstract ideas, or they have a general nicety in their entire demeanor that is a huge turn-off for a lot of people like us. And there, I think Rajesh Nandi was the first. Is it fair to call him a god man? I don't think. But let's say any religious personality related to any religion, whoever triggered any interest in me for that person, because of his personality, because of the way he talks, because of the way he comes across. I hope my mic is on. Yeah. So, that has been reinforced absolutely. And I was so right to take Rajesh Nandi seriously. What a man. And the other reason I was late was because I was checking out. I thought of blocking a guy from my channel forever because there might be safety concerns. But it's interesting that the guy who used caste slurs against the Dalit scholar Dr. Mola Patla for writing a book on Veer Savarkar's connections with Bengal has actually deleted that comment. But I took screenshot and posted it, so it's saved forever and ever in this world of internet, unless he changes the name of his YouTube channel. And he joined our live stream, live chat in the previous live stream, where he was saying all sorts of crap again. But he did not counter me when I said that I bet you this guy is probably Brahmin or Boidhar Kaisto who used a caste slur against a Dalit scholar. And I guess that's why he felt the need to delete his comment. And he accused us or me of being paid by BJP to run this channel. So I guess, guys, the payment arrived late, so I was late to this live stream. Yeah, Rutvik is saying you missed my comment at the end. Modi has an obsession with dates and landmarks. The reason the walk-up debates are happening at midnight is because of this. He has whole teams of babus ensured these things happen. But what's the issue with the date in the after midnight and stuff? I mean, why couldn't that be done in the next day and on that date only? What's the midnight issue here going on? So let's check some comments. Who all are here? Divya. Oh, you all are abusing Kushal and Abhijeet. Yeah, Lokavya was the one who recommended this and nagged me into submission, into watching this or discussing this. Because I had not watched this one. I had watched Abhijeet and Mitra's debate on whether Hinduism will end or not with Sanjay Dixit. That was very, very informative from both sides. Both of them are hugely informed on this. But I thought, what's the point of watching this really? Because according to me, Hinduism will never end. But since Lokavya nagged us so much, therefore we are doing it. So nagging works, you see. I hope girls don't get any ideas from this further. Jay Rasi is saying, should I address him as Dada? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and Teno Hekabanzai has understood the situation very aptly. He's saying, गाली दो तो भी mind नहीं करेंगे, सब libertarian है, बस कॉमी arguments मत दो और anti-animal कुछ मत बोलना. Yeah, commie arguments will be responded with as stupid arguments as commie arguments, and anti-animal, yes, I just can't help it. That's my default personal red line. Veer Savarkar and animals, I can't just take ugly comments regarding these topics. Letter is saying, if you deny rebirth as Hindu concept, then do you deny Bhagavad Gita? If Bhagavad Gita is all about rebirth, then you might need to reread Bhagavad Gita. কালকে পেপার কোথায় পাওয়া যাবে দাদা? Nowhere. It's secret for now. Dada, Sam Cedar is not undefeatable. PBD destroyed him. अरे भाई, when did he come on PBD? Shit, तब तो ये भी देखना पड़ेगा कल. आज तो टाइम नहीं है. Kancha Gachiboli case, no, haven't heard of it. I hope to nag you into content by Healthy Gamer. Yeah, I have seen his content after you had recommended. I've just not done any recommendation, reaction videos on him. Yes, I have checked out his content. দাদা একটা গান শোনাও, রবীন্দ্রনাথ বলেছিলেন আমারে গাহিতে বলো না। দাদা ইন্ট্রো সাউন্ডটা কবে রিলিজ করবে? Yeah, so many people are saying they want me to release this. Maybe I'll have to now. I'll finish the arrangement. It's not even a complete arrangement. Let's see then. No, but Bhagavad Gita supports reincarnation. Yeah, so supports and being predicated only on that one topic is not the same thing, right? There are many texts in Hindu texts which some of which I disagree with. And even Bhagavad Gita supporting reincarnation is not my problem. I can acknowledge that, yeah, it was a later interpolation. So what? Oh yeah, all peacocks crying. Yes. Of course, they should have been rehabilitated. The animals should have been rehabilitated first to a zoo or sanctuary and stuff, to Vantara only, and then you could have destroyed. Because after all, that's how all our civilization has happened. The way they did it is absolutely insane, and I don't know if I have not followed the news that much, so I don't know if after they destroyed the forest, they have at least rehabilitated those animals. If they haven't done that, that's insane, and it's beyond our control to do these things even. What does peacock mean? Peacock is Moyur. No, but Bhagavad Gita supports reincarnation concept heavily. Fair enough. দাদা তোমার স্পটিফাইতে অ্যাকাউন্ট আছে, ওদের ফ্রি লেভেলের আন্ডারে আপলোড করলে আর অন্য কোনো লেভেল ক্লেম করতে পারবে না। ইয়েস, I have many songs in Spotify and all the audio platforms under the name Nirajan Shah, NEERAJANSAHA. But for the last 1 year or so, I've not been able to upload anything because the third-party platform I was doing it through, they had some regulations changed because of Indian government, and therefore it's a tougher time uploading them personally. So I'll have to go through a label now. Peacock চলে এলো হায়দ্রাবাদ থেকে। Okay, now let's check this out. Abhay Singh, but why do you think that reincarnation is an interpolation? Because of the historians saying that it's a literal interpolation. All the historians who are not really countered by other historians who have gone through those texts as much as anyone else, people think that if we admit or kind of concede that Hinduism got inspired from Buddhism, even on something, then it's a huge loss for this debate on Hindutva. And I don't think that. I don't feel that insecure about this stuff. And I especially believe that the things that Hinduism took from Buddhism, they were bad stuff. Therefore, I have no problem criticizing it. Can you speak fluent Bengali? You have joined our Bengali live streams. What do you think? What's your opinion on Chava movie controversy? I don't think there's any. Oh, you mean that whether it's Islamophobic or not? Well, if every Holocaust movie is Christian phobic or German phobic, then Chava is also that phobic, this phobic. But it doesn't have to be. It's just another movie about a good king. That thing will boost neo-Buddhists heavily. I'm not going to spout out lies to win narrative battles. Truth is on my side. Ignoring my comment. Where is Kuasan's comment? Are Kuasan, bhai, why Hindu temples controlled by government but not other religions center? Others religion center. Why Lord Ramchandra temple in Ayodhya paid such large amount of tax? Why do you think they handled it and made it and stuff for the taxes only? কালকে স্ট্রিমটা একজন ব্যাঙ্গালোর থাকা ফ্রেন্ডকে পাঠিয়েছিলাম, সে বললো বাংলাকে গুজরাট হতে দেবে না, এটা মনুবাদী হিন্দুদের কনস্পিরেসি। ইয়া, ছেলে মেয়ে গুজরাটে কাজ করবে কিন্তু আচ্ছা, ও তো ব্যাঙ্গালোরে নিজেই চাকরি করে, হ্যাঁ, কিন্তু গুজরাট হতে দেবে না, ঠিকই আছে। এবার কেসটা হচ্ছে যে আমরা বেঙ্গলকে বিহার হতে দেবো না, তো আটকাও বাড়া, তুমি গুজরাট হওয়া থেকে আটকাও, আমরা বিহার হওয়া থেকে আটকাবো, দেখা যাক কে যেতে। If reincarnation is seen as bad, then entire edifice of Vedanta breaks down. I don't care. Edifice and political ideology is not the same. And even believing in reincarnation is not inherently a problem, but if reincarnation exists, then you have to be vegetarian. There can be no two ways about it. Eating meat, who might be your ancestors, who are killed torturously, viciously, raped for their milk, who might be your ancestors, you can't consume that product and believe in reincarnation at the same time. And the fact that Hindus eat meat kind of proves that it was a later interpolation and did not really internalize the idea. Whereas Half-Blood Prince's comment. फिर से एक बार comment कर दो, ठीक है? It's gone very much at the top of the comment section. Yes, let's start. Where did it go? What's happening today? Yeah.
With that wonderful introduction, I will hand it over to Abhijeet. कैसा है तू?
बहुत अच्छा हूँ, thank you. So I'll tell you why I chose this topic. See, there's a quote by Mark Twain. He said, "History doesn't repeat itself; it rhymes." And I think it's very important that we learn lessons from history, because mostly what happens is, in India, we never do anthropological or sociological histories of other parts of the world. We're too obsessed with ourselves. We aren't able to see when other people's experiences affect us, or how they affect us, or why they affect us. I mean, even with our own history, we're so trashy. Okay, we keep getting told horses, horses, horses. We're never told why the horses, right? So why the horses defeated us, or why the Turks defeated us. So when you have a country that doesn't ask the right questions, it is like a doctor who can't diagnose your disease. You're going to die. Okay. So I am going to do what Mark Twain suggested, which is tickle out the rhymes in history.
Yes, and that's why Hindutvadis who are against casteism, commies who are against casteism, will never solve casteism because they are asking the wrong questions. And the trads who want to save casteism, even they really probably won't be able to, because it's mainly upper castes who want to keep casteism alive, or I guess people from every caste. Yeah, so OBCs will win that battle. They will be able to do casteism, but not the upper castes because their population will be too low. This is a very good diagnosis.
And unfortunately, it doesn't bode very well for you. So I chose this title.
Lighter, again, you are falling in your own trap. If texts and practices are different, then why are you asking if I'm bothered about Gita's reincarnation dependency or not? Texts are different, no? Texts and practices are different. So let texts say whatever they want. I'll go about my life however I want.
Deliberately, because based on a lot of what I'm seeing, it is pretty much, I think the 21st century will be the century in which Hindus become a minority in their own country.
So the Jivatma is suffering or not when the cow is getting raped?
And from there, the process will be irreversible, where you may not even exist, except in, some kind of cults like, I know, Wicca or whatever. So
when population of Hindus goes further down, they will become more religious and more united. Population decline might not lead to end of Hinduism.
Go into why. And I specifically did this because I didn't want to do that usual crap about, oh, the Turks had sex slaves. Oh, the Turks had slave soldiers. Oh, they're doing love jihad. Oh, statistics, nobody produces statistics, right? So this is all properly sourced and everything. And I wanted to show you what is happening and why it's happening, because in fact, what you find is that the forces of Hindutva, far from retarding the process, are actually help accelerating it. Okay, specifically the BJP. So let's start.
Guys, we are a BJP-run channel and we are listening to this blasphemy.
The philosophy first. And I want to stress before I start that everything that I tell you is multi-causal. Nothing is ever monocausal.
Okay, Anand man. So Jivatma doesn't feel the pain, the humiliation, the fear at all.
Reason is usually, it's the straw that broke the camel's back. But remember, that is just one straw. There had to be a whole load of other bales of straw, which caused the camel's back to weaken so that this one thing broke it. So everything is monocausal. So I'm going to try to bring out the complexity, the nuance of it. And I thought
And you think people who believe in random babas, but also eat meat, also believe in reincarnation, understand these nuances?
Best way of doing it was the Eastern Roman Empire, right? That is to say, Greece, Anatolia, the Levant, which is Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and Egypt. Because that is a very, very good measure, because it first Christianized and then it Islamized. And it's very important to see why all of this happened, to understand why this is going to happen to you now and why it did not happen to you prior to 1947. Okay, so the roots of this were laid in 1947, which I'll come to at the end. Now, philosophically, if you look at it, monotheism has traditionally been intolerant. Okay, we don't need to explain this particularly greatly, because you look at the empirical example.
Yeah, how else would it become mono? You become mono by eliminating all other diversities and pluralities.
The world's first known example of monotheism is the pharaoh Akhenamun, who changes his name to Akhenaten, and essentially changes a henotheistic Egypt. Henotheism is where you have several gods, but one is most prominent. So, for example, in Hinduism, you would say Shiva and Vishnu and Durga are the most worshipped, but you also worship other gods like Brahma here, Surya here, or a few temples here and there. There's a Lakshmi temple, Saraswati temple, etc., etc. So that is henotheism. Now, Aten was during his father's reign, he promoted it as henotheism, which is Aten is the most important of a whole set of gods. But the moment he comes to power, he then abolishes the other gods and makes it monotheistic. And his persecution of all these other gods, the cults of all the other gods, the temples of all the other gods, becomes absolutely murderous. Okay, and this kind of religious bigotry, it destroys the economy. And you see this consistently. So you look at Hezekiah. Hezekiah is the man who makes Judaism monotheistic. Okay, before that, if you look at Judaism, there are a lot of archaeological evidence to show you that it wasn't as monotheistic as the Bible would have you believe. Hezekiah essentially rewrites the Bible. Extremely violent man. If you don't subscribe to his new monotheism, you get killed, whatever. And he centralizes the place of worship at Jerusalem. So in the places where he writes about where he's rewritten the Bible, you can see that violent strain come about. For example, the story of Moses. We now know that Israelis were completely native to Israel. They did not come from Egypt. They were never held in slavery in Egypt. And they certainly didn't do some exodus into Israel. All right. They've always, archaeologically, you can prove that they've been there for a very long time. However, when he creates this story, and it was created very specifically in a context where Israel's greatest adversary was Egypt. So Egypt had to be shown as the enemy. So this entire story is concocted out of thin air. And what happens is that in the story of Moses, you look at when the Jews are finally brought to the Sinai and adopt a monotheism. There is that very important episode with Aaron, where Aaron, who is Moses' actual birth brother, he constructs the golden calf. And when Moses comes down from the mountain and he sees that this golden calf has been constructed, he's absolutely furious with the people for idolatry and things. And he destroys the golden calf and he orders everybody who worshipped it to be killed. Okay. And this is pretty much what Hezekiah is doing. He's creating his one God. He's justifying it, saying that this is what our ancestor Moses did. And from this point on, this is what is going to happen to anybody who doesn't believe in this one God, etc., etc. So you have the example of Akhenaten, you have the example of Hezekiah doing it and postulating it, and I'm not going to go into it. But there is a very important distinction of what is happening with monotheism of the Akhenaten and Hezekiah kind, and the polytheism of the ancient world. Because remember, there were stages in the evolution of religion. So for example, in a Stone Age religion, you will have high levels of cannibalism and human sacrifice. When Columbus discovered America, what happens is that you land up in a place which is essentially a Neolithic civilization. They did not work metal tools. They had stone tools. And you had
Varundev, yes, that is true. But an animal writhing with pain, bleeding out, his tails wagging, its feet wagging, it trying to not go to that place, not be taken to the place where he's about to get killed. All that happened, and people who believe in reincarnation thought all that was okay.
Significant levels of cannibalism, and you had industrial scale human sacrifices happening. You then go into the Bronze Age, where you don't see cannibalism, but you do see human sacrifice. So you have a lot of examples of that throughout Bronze Age. Shang Dynasty China, Xia and Shang Dynasty China, Mesopotamia, even in Egypt, there is evidence of it. And it's a standard pattern where all your retainers are killed and buried with you when the king dies and things like that. In the Iron Age, human sacrifice also goes out of vogue, mostly. Okay, it's not done anymore. Why this happens, we don't know. But what we do know is that there is a sophistication of thought emerging. Neolithic and presumably Paleolithic religion, we don't know when religion really begins, tends to be extremely shamanistic and crude. In the Bronze Age, it is kind of a negotiation where it is not shamanistic, it is adapted to a civilization or to a state. And in the Iron Age, you see much more mature thought emerging. Now, the Vedas is very unique in this, in that despite describing a Bronze Age civilization, it is extremely sophisticated in its thought process. You don't see that kind of sophistication emerge till the so-called First Axial Age with Zoroaster and people like that, which is a product of the Iron Age, firmly in the Iron Age, right? You also look at the caliber and the state capacity of Iron Age empires. They are far, far greater than the empires that they replaced. So there's a very standardized pattern that seems to emerge. Now, I'm not suggesting causality. I'm just showing you that there is some kind of a correlation out here. Very surprisingly, the Greek religion and the Roman religion, they don't go in this direction of greater sophistication. Why? Because it has to do with the evolution of their religions. There, in the Greek and Roman world, when you die, you don't go to heaven. or hell, as the case may be. You are not reborn based on your good deeds. You go to a grey netherworld that is called Hades, and people remember you on earth by your actions and deeds. So you are urged to be valorous so that people talk about you. And the more they talk about you, the better that is for you. So be remembered in this life. But there is no connection between you being good and a reward for it in the afterlife. Yet at the same time, Buddhism and Hinduism have already developed a system of karma, wherein you are punished or rewarded based on your deeds in this life. Okay, so there is a huge diversion in what happens in the Iron Age out here, that the Eastern religions, the Eastern axial religions, Buddhism and Hinduism, develop a karmic principle. The Western old Bronze Age religions, they have not been affected by the axial age so far. They develop they don't really develop in the sense of intellectual thought. They continue the shamanistic practice. Where the sophistication comes about is the philosophy, because they understand that religion is primarily a function of state. Religion is a political animal and it needs to be controlled by the political elites. They understand this extremely well. Now, because we invent karma and a system of good and bad actions leading to reward or punishment, you don't diverge philosophy from theology. They remain the same. Your philosophy, theology, and things, your mythology, philosophy, theology remain the same. In the West, with Rome and Greece, what happens is you never develop a theology. You retain your shamanistic faith, but the Iron Age sophistication is brought out in terms of philosophy. And this is where Western philosophy shines, because there is no reward for good and bad. And therefore, you have to develop a philosophical system so that people act in a good way. Right? So this was the weakness of the Western pagan religions. This mythology and philosophy, but not having a theology. Whereas Hinduism and Buddhism develop a theology. Now understand this. This is the background. I'm not going to repeat it again. You need to keep this at the back of your mind, because this is the huge strength of Hinduism. It became a huge weakness for Rome later on. Right? The issue, of course, is that when you view religion as a political animal, you use it as a political tool to absorb different parts of your empire. So you have Spanish gods coming in, you have Egyptian gods coming in, you have Gaulish gods coming in. When the need arises, when you find a priestly cult is too powerful or they're challenging your authority, you try to extinguish it. So for example, the Romans wiped out the Gauls, so why did they absorb the Greek religion and the Egyptian religion? But why did they wipe out Gaulish polytheism? Because the Druids were a very potent political threat to them. So they did it largely for political grounds. You look at the Jews, they were never completely wiped out. They used to keep rising up in rebellion after rebellion after rebellion, and yet the vast majority of them consistently resettled in the Roman Empire, and the persecutions were always sporadic. They were never consistent. You rebel, you get punished, after a few years you get forgiven, and that's about it. Right? The memories are short. And what happens is, because you're absorbing all these gods, much like Hinduism has done for the last few thousand years, you build a syncretic culture. There is no single cult. There is no single identity. To such an extent that by about 100 to 150 AD, the primary god of the Roman religions becomes Mitra, my name, who is the main god of your arch enemy, the Parthians and the Persians. Okay, so it was that open in terms of absorbing new thoughts and new religion and things like that. The problem was the Mithridates, they used to be very secretive and closeted. They were their own cult. Then there were the Venusian cults and the Aphroditic cults and all of that. So they never saw eye to eye with each other. They never had a sense that we are all one. On the one hand, they felt we all worship the same God, but they never had what Huntington calls substance and salience. You are not us, and you are us. And this is very important in terms of how they deal with Christians and Jews. Okay, because if you look at Christianity traditionally, what is it? It's basically Judaism plus the eating of pork. Okay, and that's something very deliberate that Saint Paul or Peter, I forget now, they do that very deliberately. That they divorce the Jewish eating norms from the theology. Now, we have to understand now what is happening. Anyway, I'll come to Christianity later. So you don't have this sense, oh, the Jews have rebelled. It's a bit like the worshippers of Mithras have rebelled. Therefore, we're going to crush them now. We're going to crucify 5,000 of them. And uske baad hum chhod denge, because then they'll come back to the fold and whatever. What the Romans can't understand is, while everybody in every part of the empire is worshipping the gods, the Senate-proclaimed gods, why are the Jews refusing to worship the Senate-proclaimed gods? We accept your God. Why don't you accept our God? And this is why the Roman persecution, even of Christians, was nothing compared to the pagan persecution by Christian Romans later on. right? Which is why you can have all this atrocity literature, but it was very common for that time. But it wasn't a consistent, persistent persecution that happened out there. Now, what happens out here is that you pretty much have this new version of Judaism come about called Christianity. I'm not going to go into the origins of Christianity, but it's just really important to understand what Christianity is doing at this point of time. In the Roman religion, your rewards, your wealth, whatever, is dependent on your personal relationship with God. So it's a lot like your bhakti culture. It is how you honor the gods, how you sacrifice to the gods and things like that. In Judaism, they have already developed this concept of heaven or hell, and you are not just going to be rewarded in this life, you are also going to be rewarded in the afterlife. There, in Roman religion, you can blame other gods when you go wrong. So, for example, my business went bankrupt. Oh, I didn't appease, I don't know, Bacchus. I didn't give him his wine quota, therefore he destroyed my business. Here, it's very dogmatic belief. And out of this, we don't exactly understand why, except like I showed you correlation, Hezekiah and Akhenaten. These are people who are willing to die for their beliefs because they dogmatically only have one God. So if something bad has happened to you, you don't have another God to turn to. This is one of the explanations for why they turn why they're willing to die for their beliefs, that fanaticism. But tell me, how many Romans or Greeks do you know that were willing to die for their beliefs? None. Just like most Hindus aren't willing to die for their beliefs. And this is something Ibn Battuta commented on. Very curiously, he says, the Hindus are very strange. They're not willing to die for their beliefs. And it was the exact same with the Romans and the Greeks and the pagan Egyptians at that point of time. Right? And notice that word pagan, it has a very important connotation I'll come to. Now, Christianity does something very strange. It appeals to suffering and poverty. The message is a povertarian message. Suffering is good. Suffering is how you get close to God.
Asceticism. This is the asceticism that Nietzsche hated with all his guts.
Poverty, no rich man. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to pass through the gates of heaven. That's that famous biblical quote, right? So there's this great glorification of suffering and poverty that happens, which is very, very important in the Roman context. Why? Because when you call Rome an urban civilization, we know that only about 15 to 20%, maximum 20% of Rome was urban. You required an 80% rural population to support that 20% urban population. The other problem became that, Rome, Italy, Spain, the initial conquest, Italy and Spain, had extremely poor soil quality. You won't believe that if you go to Italy today, but it was true. You had a dry farm system where you used to keep a piece of land fallow for 2 years in order to grow crops for 1 year. Right. So the breadbasket of the empire were its eastern colonies. For a variety of reasons, Egypt, the province of Egypt was the breadbasket of the entire empire. Their surplus was so great that they could supply the entire empire. When Egypt, in the first, the second Roman civil war between Octavius and Antony, when Antony cuts off bread supplies, Rome is on the verge of famine. That's how bad it becomes, right? Anatolia is different. So modern day Turkey, Anatolia is different. It provides you with certain minerals and things. Greece is different. It provides you with oil and certain other things. So these three were the cash cows of the economy. So the oppression was much greater in these three parts: Greece, Turkey, and Egypt, for different reasons. Because remember, Turkey and Greece don't have as good soil or as productive soil as Egypt does. So it's very different things that they're extracting, but they're extracting. And consequently, when you look at the statistics of population, you find that in population percentage terms, the largest population of slaves is in Greece, Turkey, and Egypt. Over 30% of the population were slaves.
Oh, I thought America did slavery. Let's check some comments now. Dr. Nivedita Verma is saying they don't care about Hindu religion. They should refrain from trying to have the last word on Hinduism. See, they don't care about the now non-existent Greek religions as well, but they are discussing that as well. So, and they technically, literally speaking, they can't have a final say on Hinduism because ours is not a papal religion. So no one's going to approve or disapprove of what Kushal and Abhijeet are saying, and therefore that's going to be illegal from now on to say. So they are theoretically never going to. No one's going to ever have the last word on Hinduism, and so this is not a how Hindu they are discussion. It's not a examination of that. It's a discussion of people who at least claim to know about Hinduism and listening to them discussing Hinduism and sort of having a comparative analysis with other religions of the world, none of which they really probably care about. Short Bohara Romans. Yes, Divya is saying weak people making weakness and meekness as a moral high ground.
And isn't it surprising that it is in these three provinces that Christianity spreads the most rapidly? Even though the Catholic Church would have you believe that it was Saint Peter who came.
I never say anything based on one book, but I ask all your concerns, questions regarding this topic on that day's live stream. Okay, yesterday's live stream. I have asked Mystery of Sociologist to answer some of these questions because he also knows about this.
To Rome and then started the whole thing up in Rome. It was actually the fulcrum of the church, of the early church, was in the East, which is why, if you remember, there were 5. The Pope, by the Eastern Church, the Pope is only considered a primus inter pares, first amongst equals. And what are these 5 equals? There is only one in the Western Roman Empire, the Bishop of Rome. The other 4 cities are in the Eastern Roman Empire, the Bishop of Constantinople, the Bishop of Antioch, the Bishop of Jerusalem, and the Bishop of Alexandria. Okay, so 4 in the Eastern Empire, 1 in the Western Empire. Why? That's showing you very, very early on that the East started Christianizing much, much more. The greater the misery, the more this attractiveness to this message of suffering and poverty and the glory of suffering and the glory of poverty and things like that. Now, this is how the low-level capture begins. Okay, and by around the time of Constantine the Great converting to Christianity, we know that about, they say 15 to 18% of the entire empire was Christian at this point. The problem is it looks at the entire empire. When you actually split it up into the Eastern and the Western Empire, you find the Eastern Empire, it would have probably been, about 30-40% Christians by this time, right? And despite all the propaganda hogwash you see in all those, skirt and sword flicks or whatever they're called, Quo Vadis and not Ten Commandments, Quo Vadis and all those Roman things, the persecution was only sporadic.
And Constantine was a lifelong pagan. He was baptized on his deathbed.
So what happens is in the Eastern part, most resource extraction, greatest poverty, greatest inequality, this message of povertarianism appeals the most. The second innovation that the church has done, very curiously for a religion that claims to oppose the powers that be.
Very good question, Abhay. This is why Nietzsche is often discarded and misunderstood, not misunderstood actually, but let's say embodying that master morality will make a lot of people criminals. But embracing that master morality will also make a lot of people stand up to those criminals. And we can't be bothered about the possibility of too many criminals because of following Nietzsche and stuff, because there are already so many criminals who are just either exploiting other people's weaknesses or they are weak themselves and therefore find hire third parties to do criminal things on their behalf. So statistically speaking, probably the number of criminals in the society will be same. If not, it will go further down because the others won't be that vulnerable.
They turn completely Roman to the extent they absolve Caesar and the Roman Empire from the crucifixion of Christ. It is Pontius Pilate that crucifies Christ, but it is blamed on the Jews, and Pontius Pilate is this very righteous man who...
Very interesting question, Bhushalidhi, but I don't think so. She's asking, had the punishment for apostasy in a certain religion not been death, would we have seen converts back into the Hindu fold? No. There's not enough incentives and even awareness of these things that, yes, our ancestors were this and they were forced to convert, but I thought we've converted because of casteism. Now Hinduism is really better, so let's just go back to them. That conversation, that discourse has not fucking happened in their fold. Vivek, first of all, that's not a Spider-Man quote, that's a Voltaire quote. And I believe it's actually the opposite. With great responsibility comes great power, and with great asceticism comes great power. with great power, great responsibility doesn't come. Hot TV is saying, Dada, I request you to check out the fact that whether Vidyasagar said education must be confined to higher classes in his letter to Lieutenant Governor of Bengal. I don't know any Bengal specific historians. Only one I know is Dr. Shomode, and he doesn't work with this era. So you must ask other people.
Who, did not want to crucify Christ. And this is part of the
Adebi, the way you are approaching this topic is the same thing that Abhijeet Mitra was kind of criticizing in the beginning. See, we can't be bothered about everyone's personal views on each and everything before we like something by that person. It cannot work that way. That happens in a cult. Outside a cult, that doesn't happen. That can't happen. Nietzsche was a misogynist, so let's not like Nietzsche, or let's not read Nietzsche. Immanuel Kant. Does Kant's philosophy become completely irrelevant because he was a racist fuck? Do you know he was a racist fuck? He was racist, right? So Kant is completely irrelevant. You will not read philosophy, the most significant modern philosopher in the world. And let's say, Savarkar was not vegan. He hated animals, therefore. It seems you haven't read Savarkar properly. How does these arguments work?
entire propaganda narrative to start converting the empire. So I've shown you two strands right now, the economic strand, three strands right now. The philosophical strand, the fundamental philosophical weakness of not developing a theology to go with your mythology and this. You have the economic strand emerging, and then you have this whole strand about how it becomes a friend of the empire.
It applies to dog haters. It doesn't apply to free speech haters, because after all, we are talking. Free speech is the basic prerequisite. Dog hating is not. Dog hating tum karoge, hum wapas gali denge, ho gaya.
In spite of being, as we're meant to believe, persecuted by the empire. So, you know, the Romans really didn't give a shit about color, race, all this critical race theory nonsense, absolute rubbish. You could be an Arab and become an emperor. Heliogabalus, Elgabalus was an Arab. He was a native-born Arab who became emperor. They worshipped a local Arab pagan deity. Okay.
Another fascinating question from Boishalidi. Had the incentive for conversion into a particular religion not been material, would we have seen what is happening in Punjab or not? Absolutely not. Which is why Boishalidi. Models or people claiming that morality comes from religion, or people who are religious are definitely therefore more moral. That's 100% horseshit. Otherwise, Bangal families would not be disproportionately having broken families, or their joint families going to hell than everyone else in the country. So, what happened? All of a sudden, Hinduism models went to hell for Bangal families. Well, it did, but that wasn't Hinduism's fault or nor Hindu God's fault. That's just how people are. So, without rice bags, foreign funding, no one would have converted. Their morals went out of the window the moment they saw material gain. That's how it happens usually for most people.
So this thing that somehow you had to be Roman, Latin, born in Italy, didn't exist. So it was very open that way. Then what happens is, once Christianity comes to power, the entire system changes. Why? Now, Constantine converts to Christianity. He is portrayed as, I'm not really interested. Sabko ghar chalani do. I'm a very syncretic emperor. I allow everything to happen. Not true. Constantine orders the first persecution of Roman paganism, even though, so understand how secure.
Great questions from Abhay. Wait, I'll first take this one. Yeah, gravity, another great question here. Sorry for digressing a little, but this is a very important and juicy conversation as well. What's your opinion on how to solve the street dog issue in this country? What can be done that will be human? Not throwing stones on them and doing general torture, like throwing boiling water at them and stuff. Just be nice to them, or just keep your distance from them, which is what most people do. Which is what doesn't happen to those neighborhoods. Doesn't happen in those neighborhoods where street dogs become absolutely aggressive and biters. So stop fucking with them. They will stop fucking back with you. Don't fuck around and find out. And if we take this out of the realm of just personal individual responsibility, because after all, you might be great to dogs, but you go into a fucking asshole's neighborhood where dogs have been harmed all their lives, they are going to come to bite you regardless of whether you are nice to dogs or not. So ultimately, hilariously, the policy that's that's proposed and supported by absolute dog haters is 100% identical to what animal rights activists say. And the gandus on the dog hating side don't fucking know that, or don't even realize that, or don't want to acknowledge that. तो कुत्तों को गाली देते रहो, हम भी तुम्हारा बात नहीं सुनेंगे. Our policy is the same, sterilization. I have myself have paid for so many street dog sterilization. All my dogs are neutered because the dog to human population is about 1 to 6. So unless one person, each and every person in the whole world takes care in some way or the other for 6 dogs, some of them are going to have a hellish life, because dogs are completely dependent on humans. They are not fucking hunters. Cats are hunters. That's why cats don't like to live in the homes. You open a window and the cat is gone. And if you don't even feed them, they are going to catch a goddamn bird and eat it. Dogs are not that. Dogs are absolutely, their brains have been wired to become our companions. And if we one fine morning decide that दांत दिखाता है, दौड़ा मेरे पीछे, oh my god, let's cull them, they don't know that. So absolutely, sterilization is the only way to go. What was the other question I wanted to get to? Yeah, Abhay's question. Doesn't supporting master morality nullify arguments for fighting animal cruelty by other people? No. It in fact reinforces them. Because why am I, let's say, bothered about animals? Because I'm saying that whatever is happening to them, the bad stuff, is happening against their consent. You could argue that even keeping a dog in the home is a violation of their consent. But after all, they are living happily in the home. Their happiness is proven by the fact that they don't fucking try to bite me all the time. But the other stuff is in the realm of protecting the weak. Okay? Protecting the vulnerable, not the weak, the vulnerable. And your master morality is, I guess, the master morality that will be embraced by good people versus the evil people will be the bad people will use their master morality, or let's say the mentality of master morality, to needlessly go around harming vulnerable things and people and living beings. The others will stop them from doing that.
Or he was sitting in the eastern part of the empire, where he knows there is a significant population of Christians, that he can ban certain Roman pagan practices. He can order certain temples.
Great question, Varun. How did Hindus remain Hindu? First of all, a lot of Hindus did not remain Hindu because of those disincentives. The people who remained, some out of sheer fucking courage, some out of their support system because of their caste, or some because of their local Hindu king who protected them, or some because their Hindu king collaborated with the Muslim kings and said that, okay, you do whatever you want outside my locality. Let me and my Hindu citizens live in peace.
Temples demolished, etc., 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 happening out there, which shows you what is happening is that even though the Christians were in a simple majority, they were probably about 30, 35%, maximum say 40% of the population. The rest, the pagans, did not identify themselves as, I'm Roman religion. They would be like, I'm Venusian, I'm Aphroditic, I'm Zeus worshipper, I'm Mithras worshipper, I'm Tutetis worshipper, something like that or the other. So they never, at no point, do they actually see this as a clash of civilizations, though the Christians, right from the beginning, starting from Constantine himself.
Not all breeds, but most are. Which breeds are hunters? Absolutely none of them are hunters today. Dingoes are in Australia. They are not going to kill a cat if their life depended on it. I mean, literally if their life depended on it, like if they were starved for 2 months and stuff. Like it happened in Behala, in Kolkata a few years back. A guy just left his home. He was involved in some criminal activity, left 3 dogs in their home, in his home, locked up, chained up, and never came back. 2 dogs starved to death, gradually, tied up, couldn't even run for their lives, could not even make an effort to live. They just sat there, peed and pooped all day long. I mean, whenever their body required, and they ate their own poop to survive for a few days. Ultimately, they died. 1 dog was rescued 2.5 months later.
See this as a clash of civilizations, right? Then you come to, there was a particularly philosophical emperor called Julian the Apostate, who, the grandson or the great-grandson of Constantine, I'm not too sure, he actually
Yeah, consent doesn't matter for the bad people. The master morality for some people will be that I will make sure that no one's consent is violated, because it's a great tool to have. It matters. It's up to you how you will use that tool.
Actually gives up Christianity. So you still understand that there were powerful pagan forces at work where he felt secure enough to give up Christianity and go back to the old Roman religion. And he basically says what all the great the philosopher emperors of Rome, Trajan, Hadrian, Marcus Aurelius, Antonius Pius said, which is this: I don't understand this religion. It is so completely bereft of any philosophical value. And we realize that this is where the death knell was, because they understood philosophy and mythology. They did not understand the power of theology.
Varun Dev, yes. Which is why I am saying, yes, casteism is bad. Castes are inevitable. And, well, whatever bad comes out of that is also therefore inevitable. I'm therefore never hating India's past or Hinduism's past for having caste systems or casteism. Irfan Habib says so almost, that why did not the Islamic kings end or screw with the caste system? They benefited from it. Decentralized society. So when I say Hindu society is lax, it's a low trust society, I mean Hindu society, India as a general, the Hindus, they are a low trust society. Inside caste, they're absolutely a high trust society.
And that was Julian's great thing. So Julian restarts the Neoplatonic school of thought. All right. So he still doesn't get it. And this very scary parallel to today's India, where we still don't get what's happening at the macro level. Anyway, he dies. His son is a Christian. And this is when the real persecution starts. So it is Theodosius, one of the successors of Julian. This is all happening in the 300s, right? In the 4th century AD. Theodosius is the first person who orders the large-scale persecutions of pagans. Massacres, killings, rapings, seizure of property, everything starts happening. Most importantly, there is the seizure of temples and temple properties. Okay, so you no longer have a priestly class. The same thing that was done to Gaul, to the Druids, is now being done to the old pagan temples. And that is how,
when Julius Caesar came to arrived at France to invade France, the Gallic king was not Gallic king, one particular tribe was going around rallying up other tribes and saying that, yes, I know, we fight amongst ourselves all the time. They were all vicious enemies of each other, but all of them were Gauls and Druids, religiously speaking. And they say, but for now, let's just unite, because this guy called Julius Caesar is coming. And then he arrives. It's too late by then. Julius Caesar fucks them up and then writes pages on Druidism. And that's all we know about Druids. That's pretty much from what Julius Caesar wrote. Wait, another great question has come from Abhay. Abhay's question on master morality. Yeah. How does master morality make a case for not oppressing the weak? Because being a master does not mean you automatically go around wasting your time harming weak things or the vulnerable. How does it help you? How does it contribute to your well-being? Because master morality cannot mean just being an asshole. It means being strong and not vulnerable. But if somehow you believe that protecting the vulnerable is part of your morality, then you'll go around doing it. But also, you won't go around harming the vulnerable ones, because it doesn't contribute to your strength, not to your betterment in any way.
How secure they had made themselves by this point. But it is not Theodosius who actually sets the ball in motion. That is his son, Honorius. Not his son, I think it's his grandson, Honorius. Honorius becomes Western Roman Empire, and his greatest contribution is he found that just like India, where the government passes a bill in parliament, but none of the babus actually execute it on the ground. What he does is he says, listen, buggers, I have killed so many fucking non-Christians now, and yet the majority is still non-Christian. It's because you buggers aren't doing your work. So I am setting a quota. Unless you demolish so many temples, seize so many lands, kill off so many pagans if they refuse to convert, I am going to hold you babus, you IAS babus or RAS, Roman Administrative Service babus, guilty of non-compliance, and I'm going to punish you. You will bear the cost of your province not converting to Christianity. That is the great innovation he comes up with. And from that point, the process speeds up like that. Because everybody in power now realizes that they have no chance remaining a pagan. The emperor is going to kill us. And the East slowly adopts that exact same, not slowly, very rapidly, because they see how effectively it's working. And they adopt this policy extremely quickly. Right? But going back to Theodosius, why does Honorius become such a fanatic, such an openly blatant fanatic like Theodosius? Now, Theodosius, it was very clear. He saw, the empire was under pressure from Berber tribes in Africa. It was under pressure from the Persians in the east. It was under pressure from the Germans in the north. So he is sitting thinking, I'm expending so much treasure to pay soldiers to fight all these people. And yet here are some people who are willing to die for their beliefs. I don't have to pay them that much. I have to pay them subsistence, enough to make them survive, but they will fight for their beliefs. And this is what he does. He almost creates a self-financing army in that sense, where you do get paid. Of course, I mean, no amount of religion and bhakti can overcome not getting paid and an empty stomach. So he does. But he also finds that the kind of fanaticism it breeds is extremely important in maintaining the empire and especially its military strength. And this is why there becomes an economic rationale to convert the empire to Christianity, because the more converts you have, the more...
Great point here, Abhay. Then why people kill other people to loot their property? Because it gets them something. Going around torturing a cat or dog randomly doesn't get you anything. So these two examples can't work together. People harm people for selfish reasons. Some of them are in fact very weak people, therefore they do it. Some of them are actually suffering from master morality and therefore do those things. But it's after all for some sort of thing that they consider to be a gain.
Of fundamentalists, you have people willing to die for their beliefs and protect the empire.
No, neutering dogs and cats only because otherwise humans will run over them with their cars. No other reason.
The empire of Christianity, the kingdom of God, so to say. Okay. This is the revelation that Theodosius has, and Honorius then penalizes it. So between the economic and everything, now you see all the strands are beginning to connect. This is why everything starts going haywire. Within 100 years of Constantine's conversion, the Roman Empire is now majority Christian, and there is horrific persecution of the pagans. In fact, the very word pagan, okay, understand, even the word pagan comes from the Latin pagani, which is a peasant. So they have already removed all the urban wealth of the peasants. Urban wealth have all become Christian. Whatever holdouts remain are in the villages and things like that, and they have been reduced.
So what does Paganini mean? Does that have something to do with this? Does that mean son of a peasant or something?
Extreme penury. And, sorry, 1 second. At the same time, what is happening, starting around...
Okay, here's a segue. Let's check Varun Dev's comment. Varun Dev. Dada Soul, as long as I'm not behaving badly with the other castes, but if I'm working for the betterment of my caste, it is not bad. And pehli baat to hai Varun Dev ke that's what people do anyway. Like in Bengal, Brahmins, Boidos, Kaistos are always doing things that are best for Brahmins, Boidos and Kaistos. They are hiring each other only. That's what people will always do. People will always look after their status group people. And even if we mean castes in general, yes, I'm pretty big on negative rights. So if whatever you do that has to do with castes in the traditional sense falls under the category of negative rights, then I have no problem. It's only positive rights I have a problem with, and that's in every realm, every topic, every context, not just caste.
300 with Constantine and the emperor is becoming Christian. They're also thinking, why can't we apply? If people are willing to die for an idea, why won't people stop attacking us if they believe in that same idea? So the Germans, who are the primary threat to the empire, become your primary target for conversion to the empire. And it's very, very successful because the Germans are facing population pressure from the other side. Remember, the Huns are slowly coming in and things like that. So they are facing a Hunnic invasion from the east themselves. The Romans aren't letting them, Huns from the east, Romans not letting you south from the Danube. There's severe pressure on them. Too much climate invasion, all of this shit is happening all at the same time. and they're in poverty, they're in misery, they don't know what to do. And in those circumstances, for you to convert to Christianity is natural. But they don't choose the Nicene Creed, they choose Arianism, which is a different, I'm not going to go into the differences between Arianism and the Nicene Creed, that's a different topic. They overwhelmingly start becoming Christian. Now, understand what is happening. They're being pushed out their traditional lands, or not pushed out, there's significant population pressure or climate pressure, whatever, for them to move south. It is whole populations moving. They need land. So where are they moving into? They're moving into Visigothic Spain, ultimately what becomes ultimately Visigothic Spain, but also into Italy, poor soil conditions, coming with your entire...
Brilliant point, Abhay. Exactly what I was talking about in the very beginning of this discussion when I said that some people will end up being criminals because of master morality. So yes, the properly psychos bolte hain jisko, and it's not a behavioral problem. Their brain wiring is exactly like that. They actually get arousals, erections when they see someone in extreme pain or when they inflict that pain themselves. So yes, for them, though, it's even again, they are going to do it. And whether it's because they are weak, because you could argue it's sort of a brain defect for which you are doing it, or it's their master morality which is making them do it. Yes, that's what they will end up doing. And hence we will need the other guys with master morality to stop them from doing it or punishing them after they do it.
Entire population. First, they militarized. First, only the military elites were coming, which is why the Roman army had become Germanized by this point of time.
Sorry, I'll have to take this question. Dada, you had a retriever or a lab I saw in your music channel, and now when you have a desi breed as your pet, what differences are you noticing in them as pets? We bought the last pet we ever bought was in 2011. Back then, when I didn't have any awareness about the problems of the animal business industry, animal selling industry, or population and stuff, dog behavior and stuff. Back then, I was a normie with regarding animals. That cute hai, kutte pasand hai, ghar pe leke aate, chalo kharid lete hain. So she passed away in 2015. In 2012, we took home a rescued golden retriever who was almost starving to death. And then in 2000, few months after our 2011 dog passed away, we again adopted a Labrador who was abandoned by some young JU kids had bought him, and then realized that having a dog actually takes a lot of responsibility. Oh my god. They didn't even vaccinate him and stuff. So we adopted him, and then in 2020 we finally adopted a street dog from proper channels, from proper adoption handling groups and stuff. And before that, I had wanted to adopt stray dogs inside and keep them in my home forever, but my mom always believed that they might not like it, their lives are different, and they might bark all fucking day long because they want to hang around with the other dogs. So that's why we didn't. But in 2020, my mom also kind of buckled and thought, let's have one stray dog. And now I have another stray dog adopted, who as a dog has an FIR in his name because 3 people in an entire neighborhood of dog lovers complained against him, and agencies, the government was coming to pick him up and poison him and throw him away because he's a vicious mad dog who attacks people, who is living happily, cutely, nicely in my home. And the key behavior difference is, of course, Indian stray dogs are about, I mean, if these Labradors, golden retrievers, if they are, let's say, kids in class 5, 6, 7, stray dogs are Vivek Ramaswamy. The intelligence difference is fucking mind-boggling. They are not even the same species. How intelligent they are! It's unbelievable.
And the German demand was, like, you accept the Greek Eastern nature of the Eastern Roman Empire, the Latin nature of the Western Roman Empire. You need to accept, because most of your troops are German who are doing all the dying for you as auxiliaries, that there is a Northern Empire which is German, right? Which they staunchly refuse. The Romans are like, no, you're barbarians, we're not going to change you, even though most of the Roman military chiefs at this point, Stilicho and people like that, are complete Germans, pure German. Okay, born, brought up from Germanic tribes, Fritigern, Alaric, all of them, they all serve as Magister Militum, which is to say field marshal of the Roman army at this point. So when Rome finally falls, I bet you 99% of our viewers would have read that in 410 AD, when Rome is sacked, just a few years after the death of Honorius, when Alaric comes and sacks Rome, that this was the pagan destruction of the Western Roman Empire. Absolute rubbish. Alaric was a Christian. The Germans who sacked Rome were Christians. They followed a Christian called Arianism, not Aryan, not Nazi Aryan race theory, no, Arianism. And they were Christian. It was a Christian on Christian sack. And the Germans inside, remember, Rome had become so Germanized by this time that they would have seen no cultural differences between themselves and these other people. But anyway, what happens is they now start migrating in large numbers and they need the land. So conversion to Christianity becomes the way of dispossessing you of the land because they need land for their own people. So they say, if you do not convert, now this is in addition to all the horrors that Honorius wreaks on the pagans, you now have Germans who need land to settle down, who need land to till. You're the only people with land, they need to take it away. So they make a religious criteria, which is unless you convert to Christianity, you are going to lose your land. And that becomes the raison d'etre for land seizures and things like that. Notice the consistent theme out here. The economic deprivation that is happening to pagans. First, their temples and their, because remember, temples are systems of social support. They provide you with both succor as well as their, places where trade can happen, where connections are formed, networking happens and things like that. You always are closer to a brother who believes in the same philosophy and things. They are breaking that apart. So your social security is gone, your emotional security is gone, your physical security is now gone, and now your land is also gone, and it is linked up to religion in one way or another. There's economics, but remember, even religion is economics is bitch in that sense.
Oh,
so this is what is
my God. Haven't I been saying this exact thing in different ways for the last few days? See, it almost feels like he just was describing Bangals, right? This is exactly so. Exactly so.
So in the West, you have the Germans exacerbating what Honorius started for a different set of reasons. Honorius does it purely for fanaticism and for the military need. The Germans do it for their survival needs. In the East, like I told you, it is done again for a very specific reason, which is it is essential to the maintenance of the power of the state, especially in terms of getting troops and things like that, the military rationale and things. And then it becomes very, very ideological, like all these religions are prone to. But the primary driving factor is the military rationale behind it and the sheer poverty that, the sort of philosophical gap, the theological, the triumph of theology over mythology in that sense. Okay? So this is the thing that's happening simultaneously out there. Now, why did the pagans resist? First is that they didn't perceive a threat. Like I said, they thought, Tumhara Bhagwan, Hamara Bhagwan, sab, Ram and Rahim are the same kind of nonsense. There was, once the persecution starts under Honorius, well, technically under Theodosius, but becomes effective. So Theodosius started the permanent persecution. Honorius perfected it. Okay, so it then becomes a permanent state of war that you're living in. Okay, convert or die, convert or have your property seized. And there are Christian mobs, because remember, the first converts were all the poor people, the children of slaves or the extremely deprived and things. And the greater your deprivation, the more you are prone to mob violence. So there is also a kind of mafia tactics that come in. Anybody wants to seize your land. And you see this during the Middle Ages. It's much better documented during the Middle Ages, where, when a local lord didn't want to pay off his loans to the Jewish moneylender, he claimed the Jewish moneylender killed and sacrificed a Christian martyr child. And then he'd start off a pogrom, kill off the moneylender and his family, so the debt would be wiped out. So what you see out here is this economic resentment bordering into violence, and the state either not enforcing its monopoly on violence or being tacit in that because it suits the national goal. It's beginning to sound awfully like somebody we know, don't we? Somebody who sits through riots which happen in the Red Fort and in Shaheen Bagh and does absolutely nothing. That's why I'm giving you this lecture, by the way. And where was their, and their institutions are gone. Their systems of social support are gone. Where was the last stand of the pagans? Where did they, like Gandalf says, you shall not pass, and he puts his staff down. Where was the last stand of the pagans? Zero. Zilch. None. They were like frogs being boiled in water. They didn't know what the hell was happening. They didn't know how to counter it.
So far, I'm noticing one thing that might be a problem in this argument, that he's saying that since all of that happened with the pagans of those places, therefore it will happen with Hinduism. But you see, Hinduism has been, first of all, Christianized to a large extent, and now we are getting a lot of coherence and intolerance. Some have a healthy dose of intolerance, some have a pointless dose of intolerance as well. So if those things happen, then we don't match the criteria of being equivalent to those pagans, right? Yeah, Hindutva is ensuring that we are fighting back. Yes, at least coming up with a counter narrative. Let me check some comments. Rutvik is saying, another serious question: why don't we see diversity in Indian dogs like European breeds? Read anything in this regard? Rutvik, good question. All Indian dogs all across the country look exactly the same. Might be a climate thing. Might be a maybe the climate is such, the food material is such that they encourage only one type of bodies. But you see, if you go to the hills, there you'll see all various kinds of breeds, and that, I guess, was because the British left behind many kinds of dogs, and therefore in the hills of whether Bengal or Northeast, almost every dog looks completely different from the other dog. There was another one I wanted to check out. Oh yeah, Gravity's question. So if I want to adopt a street dog and keep him in my house, should I go for a puppy, or can it be a little bit older, like a year old? Can the older dog be toilet trained? I don't think so. You can adopt at any age, but toilet training for after 3-4 years, maybe not. Maybe you'll have to hire a proper trainer, but he's not going to teach him to pee and stuff. You can try though. I'm not sure. But see, if that dog is not toilet trained, he will probably pee outside only. You'll have to just take him outside all the time. Or if you want him to pee and poop in the toilet, there are specific techniques to do that. If he's within at least like 3 or 4 years old, then he might get trained on that. But if he's really an old dog, proper old dog, Buddha dog, then perhaps not, because his brain functioning is already deteriorating. But 4 or 5 years of age, up until that, it will probably take a little longer than how much it takes to train a puppy. But I think it can still be done, because the technique is same, and the way the dog will react to those incentives and disincentives are going to be same. Keshav Bedi, yeah, Manuvadi Kami.
Okay, and this was the standard reason. So I'm going to end this here, because this is how Rome was Christianized. Now,
Native Australian dogs, there's a theory on that from Sanjeev Sanyal. Native Australian dogs, who are dingoes, who are absolutely vicious hunting animals, are basically Indian street dogs who just have lived in the Australian jungles for about 3,000 years and therefore have become hunters. According to Sanjeev Sanyal's way of looking at history, they might have left with those ancient Aborigines or Austronesian people, I guess, who left from India or India adjacent areas or islands and stuff, and took those dogs with them and lived in the jungle. So they did not remain just homely, cute dogs.
How did the Eastern Roman Empire, I'm going to leave Greece out of this now, I'm only going to talk about Anatolia, which is to say modern day Turkey, the Levant, so Syria, Lebanon and Israel, and Egypt, Islamize. Now, what we need to remember is, and there is a lot of literature on this, to show you that Muhammad wasn't just like Hezekiah concocts Judaism out of thin air, or well, not out of thin air. There's a lot of theological basis for it, but anyway. What you know as modern day Islam comes about because of the Abbasid revolution. Okay, Muhammad was one of the traditions that Arabs drew on in the 600s. Then you have the Umayyad Caliphate. And by the way, the Umayyad Caliphate converted no one to Islam. I won't say no one, but they didn't convert too many people to Islam because they were essentially a rentier people. They wanted extraction. We want you to pay the jizya. We are the military elite. We are not going to give you power. We are going to keep taking money from you. And they had a very strict caste system. If you weren't an Arab, they were Arab supremacists. If you weren't an Arab, you weren't fit for office.
What?
If you weren't an Arab, you just weren't good enough. If you weren't one of the tribes of Arabia, you were not.
So caste exists there, but Hinduism's soul, the original sin of Hinduism is also caste system. Oh my god, I'm so tired about this argument. Then why can't you all be opposed to reservations? Because it's not solving anything, and it happened everywhere else. And the best way to do it is the state stops recognizing castes.
Not going to go anywhere in life. Okay, and so very quickly the Umayyad Empire, the Umayyad Caliphate falls very, very quickly, and the Abbasid revolution comes in. And this is very important for us to understand that as Islam, as you know it, is one and entirely the creation of the Abbasid revolution against the Ottomans, against the Umayyads, not the Ottomans, sorry. What is so curious about the Abbasid revolution is that it starts off in Persia, Arab leadership, but and remember the Umayyads wanted taxes, so they didn't convert. These people want to convert. Why? Because they want troops. They want a new loyal mercenary corps. So they're willing to convert. And the heft, the foot soldiers of the Abbasid revolution are Turkic mercenaries. We've spoken about this before, the Iran-Turan concept, and I think the Turkic invasions or one of those things. But the Iran-Turan concept, so Turan Turkic people, form the backbone of this entire revolution. They become the military elite, right? So what is happening out here is that you have Turks who have started coming into first Persia and then ultimately go to Anatolia. Now, why are they coming in here? In what form are they coming in here? If you go to Iran, you see their soil quality is extremely poor. They're overwhelmingly desert or extremely arid. It's only in the north, extreme north, that you have great greenery and things like that. So you have complete populations moving. And like we saw about Germans in Italy, when populations move, you need the land. And what happened to Roman pagans in Italy, because of the Germans, you now see happening to Zoroastrians in Iran. So remember, it wasn't the Arabs who converted Iran, it was the Turks who converted Iran. Turks coming in, the need, pastoralist horde meets arid land, large tracts of arid land, perfect for pastoralism, for them to graze sheep, meets new religion which promises them political power, bang. It's all your jigsaw puzzles are all getting solved out in one shot, right? So what happens is that you see the confiscation of land, and the Zoroastrians keep getting poorer and poorer and poorer. These guys benefit from the wealth of Persia and the Persian Empire. Well, it's not the Persian Empire anymore, but they become so powerful. Turkic military elite, the tax base of Persia, seizure of lands from Zoroastrians and things like that. So the conversion of Persia happens very, very, very rapidly, right? Because it's the perfect storm all happening at the same time. And it's bizarre because the Abbasid revolt is essentially a social justice movement.
सुमन नमस्ते, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद इस प्रश्न के लिए. 2 generations. You're not Bengali, right? You don't. Can you speak Bengali? If so, you should check out my second favorite Bengali movie of all time. It's a comedy called Bhuter Bhovishyat. There was a dialogue from the guy who played Bob Bishash. So, and he plays the main Gunda in Khaki Bengal chapter as well. So in that film, he had one dialogue that Duto Peto Shop Patla. So I'll throw 2 bombs and all your problems will go away. Oh, like even the great Corey Taylor said in a song in Slipknot. He's a vocalist of Slipknot. He said, give me a moment and I'll change your mind. Give me a bullet and I'll change your life. In that same way, 2 generation सिर्फ लगेंगे. सरकार को इंसेंटिवाइज करना बंद कर दो, सरकार इंसेंटिवाइज करना बंद कर दे, स्टेट नाम ही ना ले कास्ट का, सब गायब हो जाएगा. क्योंकि and now someone can say that, but earlier on it's not like state was going around doing caste documentations. The British did that. British rigidified caste, which is kind of correct. I'm only making fun of it because people think caste started with that. But you see, back then caste actually had some job to do. It was not a cosplaying fancy dress competition thing going on. Now it is, which I am arguing, only survives on state incentivizations for some and state recognition for some, and the general just discourse of division and hatred that, oh, you are getting reservation, yes, I deserve reservation. All of that fucking thing is being created by the state, and the state stops doing it, it is done. In 2 generations, no one will remember it.
It's like Black Lives Matter, or in that case, it was Turkic Lives Matter. It was literally just that. It was exactly Turkic.
Lighter, if casteism happened everywhere, why is Hinduism survival predicated on caste bhai?
Lives Matter or non-Arab Lives Matter. That's what it was. And it does a complete institutional capture. Now, we need to understand why Iran and Anatolia. Anatolia happens in the 1000s, so there's another 200-300 years for it to happen. But it's the same rationale. Poor quality land enables the movement of people who are accustomed to a pastoral lifestyle dependent on poor quality land. If it is highly agricultural, you can't turn farms into sheep grazing. It doesn't make sense because agriculture gets you more yield than pastoralism. It's a sedentary lifestyle, which is why Persia and Turkey sort of face the exact same thing. These people come in, they want your land, they confiscate your land, and once your temples and things like that, most of the lands are allocated to temples. Once your temples or your churches, by this time, Turkey, Anatolia is Christian. Once your churches are seized, the wealth of the church is seized, the land of the church is seized, there is nothing you can do. All your social security
Varun Dev, that's already going on. That's going to go on regardless of whether state stops recognizing the traditional castes or not.
Mechanisms, your your well-being, as much as you can have social security in those days. Please don't say, oh, there was no social security, whatever. I mean, man ki shanti, so to say, in that time, all of it goes out of the window. Your education systems go, your networks go, so you don't have trade, you can't do trade with anyone anymore because they will stick to their own biradari and things like that. All of it goes. Egypt is very different. Egypt, like Turkey, so the Turks start going into, and isn't it curious that Anatolia remains Christian till the Turks go in. Persia remains Zoroastrian till the Turks come in. Egypt remains Coptic till the Turks come in. Coptic Christian till the Turks come in. So the first Turkic dynasty is the Tulunids established in Egypt. Now, Egypt is a different economic pattern. Like we discussed, it is the breadbasket, was the breadbasket of the Roman Empire. It has enormous surplus production because the Nile is such a predictable river. The droughts and famines are extremely rare and far between. Okay, it's one of the most predictable rivers, generally safe from climate change rivers that we know of. Minimum, not that it hasn't been disastrous at times, but minimum. And it is.
Varun Dev, good question. Then how will discrimination end? How to solve it? So some sort of status-based discrimination will always go on. Some statuses will get away with doing some things, whereas other statuses will not get away with doing those same things. Which is the only caste, talking in the Max Weberian sense of the word, which is the only caste in the whole country who can advocate for violence publicly, day in and day out, on camera, live, and never ever face consequence for it? Politicians, right? The political caste. And what does that tell you? They have special privileges. Every status has some special advantages and disadvantages. Some have more advantages, less disadvantages. Some have more disadvantages, less advantages. The discrimination of the traditional castes that we are talking about solving is so that Hinduism becomes united. There's no other reason to this. So that Hindus themselves stop fucking with other Hindus and unite for the sake of their own safety. Great question. Thanks for bringing this up. This is the point. All discrimination will never go away. All statusism will never go away. Some in some form or the other, castes and statuses will forever remain. But this fucking chutiapa has to end because Hinduism needs to be united.
It is such a high yield river that it doesn't make sense for the Turks to first bring in their flocks of sheep and things like that into Egypt. So they come in as a military elite. It is only the military coming in out there. And they come there as a rentier state because they want to extract taxes, jizya. And jizya, remember, is additional. Now, if you're a Muslim, what happens is you obviously pay your land tax. Whatever land you own, you pay tax on it. On top of that, you provide military service. If you're not a Muslim, military service is not compulsory, so you pay jizya tax. So this is a kind of double tax that non-Muslims have to pay. And the Tulunids are very happy doing this. When the Fatimid Shia Caliphate comes in from the west, from Libya, and conquers Egypt from the Tulunids, they're also extremely happy with the system that, most of you stay Christian, but we're going to take away all your wealth slowly. The same thing happens in India. The same thing, by the way, is happening. Well, I'll come to India later. Anyway, so what happens here is they don't want to convert you. The economic need to convert you does not exist. Quite the reverse. They want state revenue. They've got the military elites. They've got military migrations happening. They don't need a military force. They need your revenue. And then, boom, what happens? The Crusades start. In the 1000s, the Crusades start. In the 1200s, the Mongol invasions start. And these become a massive threat to Egypt. Because remember, Egypt is a superpower at this point. Because of the agricultural wealth it's sitting on, it influences everything that is happening in Baghdad, in Damascus, in Aleppo, in Jerusalem at this point. And Egypt is actively interfering in all these parts, like it once did under the pharaohs. So what happens here is the number of troops that you required is no longer sufficient. You need a lot more troops. So now there is incentive for you not to get jizya, but to get more military service. And that is where the conversion incentive starts. Isn't it curious that Egypt becomes a Muslim majority country only in the 1200s, when Turkic rule is absolutely clearly established out there? Nobody other than a Turk can rule. To such an extent that since the period of Alexander, well, more, Assyrian Empire, then Persian Empire, basically since about 500-600 BC, Abd al-Gamal Nasser in 1950 is the first native Egyptian to rule Egypt. Since the 800s, you essentially have Turks ruling Egypt, right up to the last Khedivate of Egypt. So now you have an economic rationale that everybody needs to become Muslim because of military service. And this is where then the land seizure starts. They're not content at just demolishing the church. They also want to seize this thing. But there's something else happening out here. When the Abbasid revolt happens, notice the iconoclasm movement in the Eastern Church, in the Byzantine Church, doesn't start till not when the Arabs become a threat, but when the Abbasid revolt really picks up. And they see that they're going on losing to people who refuse to put a face to their God. And so it starts up a movement within Eastern Christianity called iconoclasm, which is to say you don't worship God. So when you go to Hagia Sophia, you can clearly see layers where the old Church of Holy Wisdom, Hagia Sophia, has been plastered over or something like that. And there's a second layer of paintings for when iconoclasm is defeated. That's a different argument. I'm not going to go into it. But what happens here is that they use iconoclasm it becomes a self-reinforcing thing. Abbasid iconoclasm or image destruction feeds Christian image destruction, which is then used later on to justify more Muslim image destruction in Egypt and Syria at this point of time. Even though it happens in the 700s and 800s in Byzantium, 7 and 800s in Byzantium, it then refracts back onto Egypt because it's a fantastic tool for saying, not only am I demolishing your churches now, I'm also seizing your land. So the economic prosperity of the Egyptians is completely taken away, of Coptic Christian Egyptians is taken away, and your churches are demolished. So remember, church demolition by itself doesn't destroy a community, but seizure of its lands and wealth does destroy a community, because of the way the entire pre-industrial agricultural biradari system works. So this is very important. Now, what happened in India prior to 1947, starting with the Turkic invasions? We had very rich land. Along with Ukraine and Poland, India has the highest percentage of arable land anywhere in the world. 48 to 52% of our land is arable. So like I said, it doesn't make sense to bring your entire population, your Turkic nomadic pastoralist population, down here. So like we said in the horse video, if you saw, that is why we couldn't breed horses. Understand, it was the same reason that we could not breed war horses in this country, that Turkish populations did not move into this country. So the loss of the war horse meant the protection of Hinduism. And that is why...
Found it. What Boishalidi said there, I wanted to bring up a quote, my mic is on it, from Sitaram Goel. I do not regard Islam and Christianity as religions at all. He had flipped it. People say that they are religions and Hinduism is a way of life. He used to say that Hinduism is a religion. They are not. They are just, we'll get to it. Listen to this paragraph. My first premise is that Sanatan Dharma, which is known as Hinduism at present, is not only a religion, but also a whole civilization which has flourished in this country for ages untold, and which is struggling to come into its own again after a prolonged encounter with several sorts of predatory imperialism. Predatory imperialism. I do not regard Islam and Christianity as religions at all. They are, for me, ideologies of imperialism like Nazism and communism, legitimizing aggression by one set of people against another in the name of a god. Yeah, I'm not reading that sentence. I see no place for them in India now that India has defeated and dispersed Islamic and Christian regimes. I do not concede to Islam and Christianity the right to maintain their missions in this country, or for that matter, their seminaries, which train missionaries for waging war on the Hindus. And Indian state went a step ahead and instead funded them with our taxpayer money, which Sitaram Goel even didn't want to exist in India. Forever. We, or at least since the Islamic invasions, we have paid for our own oppression. हमने पैसे दे के बोला है हाँ मारो हमारी. So I have no use for a secularism which treats Hinduism as just another religion and puts it on par with Islam and Christianity. For me, this concept of secularism is a gross perversion of the concept which arose in the modern West as a revolt against Christianity, and which should mean, in the Indian context, a revolt against Islam as well. The other concept of secularism, namely Sarvadharma Samabhava, was formulated by Mahatma Gandhi in order to cure Islam and Christianity of their aggressive self-righteousness and stop them from effecting conversions from the Hindu fold. The second concept was abandoned when the Constitution of India conceded to Islam and Christianity the right to convert as a fundamental right. Those who invoke this concept in order to browbeat the Hindus are either ignorant of the Mahatma's intention or are deliberately distorting his message.
The horses should be sacred to you. It is precisely because we could not produce horses that we managed to survive as a Hindu state. Because had they come in large population numbers, you would have been wiped out, because the entire economics of conversion would have changed. Now, what is happening is only a military elite, mostly men, are coming out here. Okay, violent military men. Some of the elite women are coming, but mostly it's only an elite military class coming. They are not bringing in their sheep. They're not bringing in their people. They are coming here to seek.
So basically, what's happening in England right now?
Rent from the land. Okay, they want to keep taxing you. It is good for them that you stay pagan so that they can apply the jizya tax. Hum military provide karenge, tum jizya karo. Tum jizya tax do. We will do military service, you give us jizya tax. And the way this entire thing works is, you see that there is, what is the external threat out here? See, Egypt had, why did the economics change in Egypt? It was the same logic in Egypt as it was in India, but it was geography dependent. Egypt faced a Mongol invasion. Egypt faced a need for Egypt to, project power across the Middle East, right up to the Iraqi border. So it needed extra troops. So the economics of conversion changed. In India, tell me which Indian empire do you know during the Delhi Sultanate that waged war outside the territory of modern day India or Pakistan? They were mostly invading in the south and things like that. They weren't going outside. So they had enough troops and enough military superiority that they didn't have a peer competitor to change the economics of conversion for them, right? The next thing was, when Egypt was largely Christian and the Crusades start, they're like, oh my God, we live in a Christian majority country and the people invading us are Christian. God forbid that our Christians make common cause with their Christians. That was another reason that they forcibly converted. From the 1000s to the 1200s, Egypt was forcibly converted. What was the only external threat India faced? The Mongols. And today, there are people who want to see the Mongols as some dharmic fellow shaman pagan people. There was no such identification. No bloody Hindu at that point of time felt any kind of kinship with a Mongol at that point of time. I doubt they even knew the Mongols existed. ठीक है ना? अरे ये देख लो कि when Muhammad Mahmud of Ghazni,
Varun Dev, he's specifically talking about the Delhi Sultanate people.
He was coming and destroying the Somnath temple. Rajendra Chola was so completely unconcerned. He was more interested in going and sacking Sri Vijaya and Malaysia and Indonesia than he.
And why was that? He of course did not have the sense of, I guess, a united cultural unity nation, but he was making sure that business goes on. He was ensuring capitalism survive.
He was in protecting the Somnath temple, even though he was a Shiva Bhakta and built the Gangai Konda Chorapuram temple. So this
trads नहीं मानेंगे. यही है सच्चाई. ऐसे ही होता है. And it's okay. And the problem with pointing out these facts is that they think we are saying this as a criticism or because we hate India or hate Hinduism. I'm saying it's so fucking awesome in a way that Cholas were doing that. And you could have argued that yes, no, he should have instead done that. How can you be so sure? how can you be so sure that becoming poorer as a result and letting other people invade the entirety of Southeast Asia and fucking their own wealth was in fact going to be better for the future of India?
Identification that the Christians had, that Egyptian Christians had with Crusaders, well, the Muslims thought they did, this didn't exist. So there was no either military rationale for it, social rationale for it, or economic rationale for these people to want to convert you to Islam. Now, you will ask me, there is not a single temple left. That is correct. There is no old temple left in the north. Quite correct. Like I said, demolition is not the same as...
No, Varun, they've decentralized is in the sense of policy, laws and stuff. Not in the sense of कि हर राज्य एक अलग देश, वैसा नहीं.
Seizure of land. They thought of you as a cash cow. Okay, so even though they would demolish your temple to show their power, they allowed you to retain large parts of your land and things. The social structures around it were maintained because you are their cash cow. You produce the taxes which they extort from you. Okay, so again, it didn't make economic sense for them to and of course you didn't see each other as Hindus. So Hindu empires were very happy attacking other Hindu empires. Like in the last podcast, Kushal, like I explained to you, it was the Vijayanagar and the Gajapatis and Vijayanagar and the Gangas who were ultimately responsible for the destruction of Odisha. The next thing you need to understand is that Syria, once it becomes Islam becomes the government religion. In places like Syria, Iran, Turkey, and Egypt, you had extremely high-end states which provided significant public goods, caravanserais, public baths, fountains, markets, hammams, things like that, hot water, hot steam baths and things like that, public ovens and things like that. All of these are provided. In India, you have none of these. It's an extremely low-end state. So even though the Turks promised you, because like we discussed in the Turkic invasion series, Turkic slavery was actually a boon. It offered you great prospects for promotion. But in India, there was no point converting to Islam because it's such a low-end state. What are the benefits you're going to get from becoming a Muslim? You may not have to pay jizya, but then you have to go fight in somebody's war and die because you have to then provide military service. Right?
Varun Dev, yes. It's my personal policy. So anyway, even the Libertarian Party of India has the same policy. They are saying that on foreign policy, if someday we come to power, there's going to be no significant change in foreign policy from what the BJP is doing right now. Because we are not fucking globalists. Not me, and neither the Libertarian Party of India. At least on 99% of issues. So because if we were those commie tree-hugging libertarians, then we would say, yes, you see, libertarianism means that we don't have an army, let borders not exist, etc. But this breed of libertarians, we are saying that हाँ, libertarianism बढ़िया चीज है, बहुत सी कि वो हमारे देश के अंदर करना है, वो सबके लिए फैलाना नहीं है. Or how do we even have the guarantee that everyone will have those same views? So repeatedly, the Libertarian Party of India guys have been asked this on the comment section, and repeatedly they have said that yes, we're not going to tolerate any fucking thing that stops us from having a libertarian country.
Right. So there were all kinds of things that didn't work out, and the differential. See, if you're here and after converting you go here, that makes a lot of sense. You'll convert. But if you're here and after converting you're only going here, that's not making much sense. And remember, this was also a period of time when Indians were completely untrusted by the Turkic military elite. Balban detested Indians. You look at most of the things that these people write, they simply weren't willing to give you that class status. The Turkic, the tribal, the religious conversion didn't ensure you entered tribal loyalty patterns. So this was another thing that prevented the differential of conversion from being so great as to make it attractive even for socially upwardly mobile people, or people who wanted to be socially upwardly mobile. Then you have this whole issue that if you read Ambedkar, you see this, that it is during the Muslim period that the number of Dalits increases exponentially. And why is that? That's because on one hand, you yourselves as Hindus are ostracizing these people, and the Muslims are coming and doing all kinds of atrocities. But this was natural. In those periods of time, you did atrocities, and you're using your caste rules to create more and more and more social immobility, that you're creating more and more and more Dalits. And mind you, India is Hindu not because of you or me, it is because of the Hindu Dalit who faced oppression both from Muslims and from you bastards and still refused to convert. तुमको उनका चरण
Some who remained, of course. A lot of them did not.
चरणामृत पीना चाहिए instead of bloody trumpeting jati varna nonsense. Okay, you're unfit even for their charnamrit if you believe in jati varna nonsense. So this is how the economics of all of it worked. And there was a belief, because Hinduism had that theological strength that we talked about when we opened this thing, that because it never separated philosophy and mythology, it maintained and it developed a theology.
So let's test it. Let the state not recognize caste names. Let caste-based parties be banned, and then see how many remain in their caste, how many follow their religion, and how many don't convert or convert. Because back then there was a disincentive to remain a Hindu. Now there are incentives to not remain Hindu. So let's test them again.
It wasn't open to intellectual challenge by Islam either. Okay, so there was this entire thing where the economics didn't work out, the motives didn't work out, the social structures, the theology, none of it worked out, and that is why you didn't convert. It's not that you heroically तुमको उनका चरणामृत पीना चाहिए if you believe in jati varna nonsense. So this is how the economics of all of it worked. And there was a belief, because Hinduism had that theological strength that we talked about when we opened this thing, that because it never separated philosophy and mythology, it maintained and it developed a theology. It wasn't open to intellectual challenge by Islam either. Okay, so there was this entire thing where the economics didn't work out, the motives didn't work out, the social structures, the theology, none of it worked out, and that is why you didn't convert. It's not that you heroically defended yourself for dharma or anything like that. I know you'd love to believe all these wonderful stories like Padmavat and all of that. That is, it's a sub factor to the economic and social reality at that point of time. So please wake up and smell why you did not. Okay. Now,
what's the
fast forward to the Brit.
I agree.
It wasn't open to intellectual challenge, and that is why you didn't convert. It's not that you heroically defended yourself for dharma or anything like that. I know you'd love to believe theology, none of it worked out, and that is the was this entire thing where the economics didn't work out, the motives didn't work out, the social structures, the theology, none of it worked out, and that is why you didn't convert. It's not that you heroically defended yourself for dharma or anything like that. I know you'd love to believe all these wonderful stories like Padmavat and all of that. That is that you heroically defended yourself for dharma or anything like that. I know you'd love to believe all these wonderful stories like Padmavat. Motives didn't work out, where the economics didn't work out, the motives didn't work out, the social structures, the theology, none of it worked out, and that is why you didn't convert. It's not that you
I'm not getting this point. Why didn't we convert exactly? Did anyone understand the point here? Gravity is saying, now you have to give it to the Dalits, man, especially the ones living in Bangladesh right now. They are brave. We have to admit they don't have any incentive in Bangladesh to remain Hindu there. See, morality doesn't prop up or get destroyed in moments, right? It takes sort of a gradual weaning period, but unless it's something drastic like partition, which affected millions of people, so there was Awami League every now and then, which even though it was hardly a Hindu party, but it did some, I guess, some amount of protection, which is why it's still accused of being a Hindu party at least. What I'm proposing is that if it was only Khaleda Zia forever and ever and ever, then the population would be even lesser. More of them would run away here. More of them would have converted to Islam. Like in Pakistan, every day someone or the other is converting because there is no Awami League there. Awami League has offset this. And also think of how many insanely rich Shahas and Chaudhuris are there in Bangladesh, Hindus. So you see, Bangladesh is not as bad as Pakistan. It's, I guess, right now pretty as bad as Pakistan. It has not been forever as bad as Pakistan, because otherwise there would be no Shahas or no Chaudhuri Hindus who would be rich as fuck. Or the money that Chaudhuris and Shahas have in Bangladesh, that offsets even radical Islamism. That's the power of money and capitalism.
Heroically defended yourself for dharma or anything like that. I know you'd love to believe all these wonderful stories like Padmavat and all of that. That is, it's a sub factor to the economic and social reality at that point of time. So please wake up and smell why you did not.
So I don't get it. Why didn't Hindus convert? I get it. It's a great occasion to credit Dalits. I have no problem with that.
If you believe in Jati Varna nonsense. So Indians were completely untrusted by the Turkic military elite. Balban detested Indians. You look at most of the things that these people write. They were full of, they simply weren't willing to give you that class status. The Turkic, the tribal, the religious conversion didn't ensure you entered tribal loyalty patterns. So this was another thing that prevented the differential of conversion from being so great as to make it attractive even for socially upwardly mobile people, or people who wanted to be socially upwardly mobile. Then you have this whole issue that if you read Ambedkar, you see this, that it is during the Muslim period that the number of Dalits increases exponentially. And why?
Yeah. Milton, who is from Bangladesh, is saying, I haven't seen a rich Shah in Bangladesh. Came across Roy's Mondol's Chaudhuris. Rich Roy's Rich Mondol's Chaudhuris, right? Yeah. No, I know of rich Shahs as well.
Why is that? That's because on one hand, you yourselves as Hindus are ostracizing these people, and the Muslims are coming and doing all kinds of atrocities, but this was natural.
How much Buddhism contributed to Shudrafication of the society, he is ignoring that. That's the problem.
In those periods of time, you did atrocities, and you're using your caste rules to create more and more and more social immobility, that you're creating more and more and more.
Unless he's saying that by this time, Buddhism is pretty much done in India.
For Dalits. And mind you, India is Hindu not because of you or me, it is because of the Hindu Dalit who faced oppression both from Muslims and from you bastards and still refused to convert.
This is a very specific point. Let's ponder over this a little. They had their specific tasks and stuff. They are facing oppression. They are paying jizya. The Hindu oppression is, of course, that you don't come near my village and stuff. You will do this job, provide your service, and get the fuck out of my face. That's what they're facing from Hindus. And some violent atrocity every now and then. And from the Muslims, they are at constant threat and probably have to pay jizya. When the threat comes, on the day the threat comes, obviously, some of them heroically die, some of them convert, and some of them heroically don't convert. But is Abhijeet Mitra saying that even in this life situation where you're going on paying jizya and facing discrimination in day-to-day lifestyles, which would be pretty equivalent to what any poor person faces today, is that situation dire enough for someone to convert? All I'm saying is that if push comes to shove, most will convert. For a lot of people who were paying jizyas and could not afford it, and even then remained Hindus, it was just not dire enough. And if you say that paying jizya itself is a dire consequence, well, yes, their faith bypassed their jizya payments, I guess.
Charanamrit pina chahiye instead of bloody trumpeting Jati Varna nonsense. Okay, you're unfit even for the Charanamrit if you believe in Jati Varna nonsense. So this is how the economics of all of it worked. And there was a belief, because Hinduism had that theological strength that we talked about when we opened this thing, that because it never separated philosophy and mythology, it maintained and it developed a theology. it wasn't open to intellectual challenge by Islam either. Okay, so there was this entire thing where the economics didn't work out, the motives didn't work out, the social structures, the theology, none of it worked out, and that is why you didn't convert. It's not that you, heroically defended yourself for dharma or anything like that. I know you'd love to believe all these wonderful stories like Padmavat and all of that. That is, it's a sub factor to the economic and social reality at that point of time. So please wake up and smell why you did not. Okay. Now, fast forward to the British.
What is the why?
Understand they did.
Did he really clarify the why? He just said that, okay, the heroic kings we are talking about, they are not that heroic, only the Dalits are heroic. That might be, but did he make that point that clearly?
Didn't interfere in religion beyond a point. They did not seize your temple property or anything like that. And that the Muslims also did, they seized property, of course, but it wasn't the kind of systematic destruction because they wanted the jizya income and all of that to happen. They didn't do it. And in Bengal, I can tell you, we, for the longest period of time, our grandparents used to see the British as liberators.
Now, the fact that we wholesale did not convert also has a lot to do with the sheer population. It's a goddamn fertile land. Shosho Shamola Bharatborsho. The population is simply too high for everyone to convert, especially when it's decentralized.
Okay, when Siraj-ud-Daulah was removed, I can bet you most of Hindu Bengal clapped, because they were British rule was far less capricious than Turkic rule was. So no issues with that. Why does the danger begin post 1947? And I'm going to end in about 5 to 10 minutes now. Sorry, I've gone over the time limit. Why? What happens in 1947 to 1952? All the Hindu temple lands get nationalized. The government of India takes them over. So your community response mechanism is decapitated overnight. Okay, your sources of religious, so identity-based revenue, and whatever social services you could use those to provide, you are no longer able to provide them. So understand what is happening here. The same thing that happened in Rome, in Constantinople, Rome, the Germans, Constantinople with the Christian Roman emperors, with the Seljuks in Turkey, and with the Turks in initially in Persia and then in Egypt. Exact same economic rationale sits in here. You don't have the community response mechanisms left. You have been, this is almost a decapitation blow for you. No community can survive that. Okay. Second, what happens is, like the discriminatory legislation brought in by Honorius, not entirely like Honorius, privileging only Christians in positions of power. What happens out here is you give a monopoly on social services to certain minority sections. So schools, and in an information age, education is gold. Minorities can set up schools at will. Majority community requires all kinds of clearances and whatnot to happen.
Yeah, and here onwards we get into the topic of that topic again, that us paying for our own oppression, we funding our own oppression. Since the evolution in your argument from Dalit resilience being the reason of not converting to now arguing for incentives in 2 to 3 years span. Incentives explain everything. Yes.
So hospitals, schools, colleges, they're all set up by Christian bodies and things like that. So if you were a low-end state where, the benefits of conversion during Turkic rule weren't that great, maximum here, suddenly what has happened is you're still a pre-industrial, third world, low-level shit.
Wait, let me just answer Varun Dev's comment because he has made it multiple times. There is a con in centralized society, which is that if we get defeated, that then entire country loses. But in decentralized system, Northeast India and some parts of South India defended against Mughals. What's your point then? Make the exact point then.
Cool. But suddenly there is a community which is able to provide schooling, hospitals, all kinds of things for you. That differential just increased this much. And because all your land was seized, your ability to respond to it reduced this much.
Yes. And like any random urban liberal commie that you speak to, who doesn't really even hate India and stuff, okay? Who doesn't hate India for caste system and Satyaprata? You will notice them saying that, you will notice them having a different reverence for, if not any other religion. Christianity and Sikhs to some extent, every time, because they think of Christianity and they think of charity. So many poor kids are given homes, so many orphanages, so many schools that are good schools which help abandoned Hindu children even. That's happening on our taxes. We are giving donations to temples which are being used to build roads, and the temple is paying taxes, and they are getting tax breaks. Those religions.
Okay, so the differential has now become this big. Okay, then what happens is, because this differential has become big, there is povertarianism and a lack of hope. And what did we discuss in Rome? Who did Rome appeal to the most? The most oppressed and extorted and extracted out of. So that message of suffering being glorious, of poverty being next to righteousness and all that, it appeals even more to the people who have been dispossessed.
Which is why then people start saying Western style capitalism is bad. It's Western.
So now you have even eroded your theological strength. Okay, because poverty, you can't think about points of high theology. Poverty, you're concentrating on food. You don't know where your food is going to come from. You're not going to think of Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma. So even your theological rigor in...
Oh. So Dalits were not poor then. That's why they didn't convert. Because now Abhijeet Mitra is saying if you are poor, you won't think of Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma. But 5 minutes back, he said that they were poor and even then thought of Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma so much that they didn't convert. Heroically, I might add. You see, we are running around in circles again. They have hit a wall and they're going to go around banging on the wall now. This is what happened on that bullshit caste debate on Op India. If you don't consider castes as status groups, all your other arguments, bad and good, based on caste, falls flat absolutely. If you get the premise wrong. This is why he is now getting everything else wrong regarding castes.
Combating Christianity goes down here. And what happens now is, because the education gap becomes so much, the education, health, they're all interlinked, better health, better education, all of that, better social services provided by the church and all of that, and your inability to provide the same for your own, means that because of the education gap, these chaps have a much better messaging system. Even now, you look at the BJP and the RSS, they're stuck in 60s, 70s jargon. They're unable to macro, they're unable to abstract, they're unable to come up with anything even remotely sophisticated. Usually when a BJP chap starts talking about sociology, doesn't matter if it's a minister or a prime minister, you go cringe, where was this?
My God, what AK Brahmo is saying, that might be the case, guys. Dalits did not convert because everyone was discriminating them against them equally, and therefore thought, अच्छा चलो गाली वहाँ पे भी खाना है, यहाँ पे भी खाना है, तो खाम का ये बीच में conversion का बकचोदी क्या है करे? But even then, lots converted.
This fucking idiot come from? Okay, so the level of sociological, anthropological illiteracy in the BJP and the RSS it's scary. I know you chaps think it's a joke, but understand, it is the idiots who don't do STEM, who ultimately, because of their hatred of people in STEM, end up controlling the world. Hate is the biggest driver. Okay, and it is this kind of, pathetic knowledge of sociology that is going to screw us over. Then what happens is, so this is the Christians in India that I've been talking about. This is the trajectory of the Christian growth in India. In Islam, what is happening, and by the way, incidentally, one other thing is that when your education system, you create this, to counter it, you then create reservation. So much for OBCs, so much for SC, STs and all of that. There is nothing to verify that you haven't converted. You could be a Christian. Genius. You could have converted to Islam. Is there any verification process or notification process that you have converted?
No, government.
Because your SC, ST certificate is based on if your parents are SC or ST. So as it is, the difference is so much. And now, because these people can double dip, they get both the benefits of being part of the church and the social services of the church, plus, because there is no verification mechanism, they can also dip into what is required for you. So they also get the benefits of reservation. So the gap just became this much. It's now off the charts. You can't see the top of my hand and the bottom of my hand. That is the differential right now. Okay.
Milton is giving a weird argument. If money was required to practice dharma, then Mathur, Jele, Para and other bastis would not have done Durga Puja, Bashanti Puja, Saraswati Puja on their own. What do you mean? Because they are poor, someone gives them the puja samagri for free, or the purohit comes for free. They pool their money. Their puja is just on a smaller scale because they are poorer than others.
Double dipping in the social benefits mechanism. For Islam, it's something different. In 1857, what happens is the entire Muslim nobility is, it's blamed on Muslims. 1857 is seen by the British deliberately as a Muslim riot, and they are basically dispossessed, whatever. So the polity gets stuck in this feudal thing. They are agrarian or artisans, and they remain stuck in a feudal thing where the local mohalla boss or chief or whatever, the former Nawab or Asaduddin Owaisi type people, they control the qawm, the local qawm, the jund within the region. Okay, it's
Acha, you mean the stuff they grow on their own in their own fields? They use that for puja samagri, right?
extremely feudal at this point. The rentier economics of not conversion don't apply. So now
And Mathur, Muchi, Jele, all of them do farming.
it moves into theology. When there is economics preventing you from converting people, the economic rationale has now been removed. You are not the landowners anymore. So now you fall back on ideology, which tells you to convert. Okay, you have to convert. It is a religious duty now. So you've said.
Then Milton, the other argument would be that if money is not a factor, then how does rice bag become an incentive to convert? खुद उगाओ, पूजा सामग्री बना लो, हो गया, राइस बैग काहे चाहिए? Of course, there's still the issue of, yes, I can do my own puja samagri, but I'm still poor as fuck. So if this guy is giving me free rice, then why not? But even if one person, one Hindu has converted because of rice bag, not one person, maybe that's too much of a hyperbole, but if let's make it easier on me. Since so many have converted because of rice bags, and only because of rice bags, the incentives of rice bags, then where's the argument for anyone, upper caste or lower caste, being happy with their own samagri that they grew on their own without money coming into the question?
Set the roots for fundamentalism. Okay. Second, what you've done is, because you have essentially, when you did democracy and gave the right to vote to everyone, Muslims have remained a feudal polity, which means a few strong men control how the community votes. It is in his interests and his community's interests to expand the size of that vote bank. So you just incentivized him to convert more people in order to expand his reach and his power. The third thing that you did is you incentivized him to use coercive force. Okay, so he will come, he will riot, he will convert you by force, he will do love jihad and all of that. I mean, love jihad is a more complex thing, grooming gangs and things. We can do a separate podcast on that because that's a completely different sociological trajectory. But anyway, let's just stick to forced conversions and things like that. You've effectively incentivized him by the electoral dynamic to force people to convert. You have made it good for him to convert.
Yes. We have made the problem worse now.
He needs to convert people in order to survive. Then what happens is, you have a state which under the BJP, the state has been failing. The state does not exercise its monopoly on violence. Godhra happens, what is Modi doing? He's playing his violin like Nero on the roof. When the Red Fort burns, he's playing his violin on the roof like Nero. When Shaheen Bagh is happening, he's sitting and playing his violin. I don't think they had a violin those days. He was playing a harp or something like that, a harp or lute or something like that. He's playing, sitting on his roof. When they're coming and raping your women and killing your people in Bengal, you're still sitting and playing your little harp in sitting in Delhi, talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, Vishwa Guru, Sabka Saath, Sabka Bakwas and all that nonsense. So not only have you incentivized this sort of forced conversion thing, the people who don't want to convert, you aren't even providing them with a protection mechanism.
Gravity is bringing out a very important point. Then who is this government giving subsidized rations to every month? Who are these 80 crore people? So is that ration system preventing further? Absolutely not. Which is why someday when temples become free or Bageshwar Baba goes and gives them 2 bags of rice as opposed to 1 to convert back to Hinduism, it's not going to even work because they are already getting so much support from the state on taxpayer money from Hindus, which they don't consider to be Hindu donation. And they are going to, I think it's decreasing now, the USAID and the FCRI license and stuff. But let's say in the hypothetical situation that they do keep coming in, then the people trying to do ghar wapsi are up against these two giant monsters: the Hindus paying for their food, and also the Christians paying for their food. Where is the separately the Hindu who has already paid his taxes and now has to fight these two, going to come up with more money to fund these ghar wapsis? So unless freebies stop, no one can do ghar wapsi based on positive incentives from the Hindu side. Only some pockets here and there, like it's going on right now. Not mass reconversions. सारा हमारा पैसा तो खत्म हो गया already राशन देके. The other rice bags is not prevalent in Bangladesh. Yes, जिस जात छिलो जितना भी था वो उनको भी मुस्लिम बना दिया है. There were some Christian conversions in Bangladesh at one point. But I know that rice bags came to Tripura in Bangladesh, converted them, saying false things, and forcefully after a year. Yeah. And others converted in Bangladesh.
Against conversion. So you've removed their social security. You've removed their ability to counter another religion at an intellectual level. You have removed their ability to exclusively benefit from things that are meant to accrue only to Hindus. You have incentivized violence against them. You refuse to use the mechanisms of state to protect them, like we discussed under Theodosius.
No, they were not. They were forest lands. They were tribals.
Now you see it all adding up. There is actually an incentive for a Christian to convert you. The Indian state ensures that. The BJP ensures that. The BJP ensures, the BJP's actions over the last 7 years
আরে সৌমেন বালতি, পয়সা দিলে সব সম্ভব.
ensure that there is an incentive for the Muslim to convert you. They have ensured that there is an incentive for you to save your own life to convert, or to for better socio-economic opportunities to convert. Okay, and then the counter to that is, well, the BJP has created great Hindu awareness. There is Hindu consolidation that is now being broken down by all this Brahminism and all that nonsense. Like I said, the education gap is so far ahead that they're able to run rings around you in propaganda. Your propaganda isn't even 1/10 of the fart that comes out of them. Okay, it's extremely crude propaganda that preaches to the converted. Okay, so you have that. Now notice all the trends. Mark Twain, history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. I've been trying to show you what everything happening with India, especially in the last 7 years, it has been rhyming. It has been rhyming with the way the Christians took over Rome. It has, and it has been rhyming with the way the Turks took over Persia, Anatolia, and Egypt. So instead of going around screaming on micro and things like that, oh, is gaon mein wo hua, start macroing, start abstracting.
Yeah. We were discussing, A.K. Brahma and Joyrasi are also talking about this. We were just talking about the fact that just paisa can solve ghar wapsi or contribute to ghar wapsi. But remember when I'm saying that it's very, very beneficial to look at caste as status groups, and it's absolutely essential that you look at today's IAS bureaucrats and academics as Brahmins of yesteryears, and then you will be able to draw parallels very, very fruitfully and constructively. In the same way, I'm proposing that look at today's political parties as religions, and if conversion from this political party to that political party can happen just because of money, and not for the random Trinamool Gunda who has no ideology, for people who had deep reverence for Karl Marx and stuff, or deep reverence for Mamata Banerjee, वो भोसरी के ऐसे फ्लिप कर रहे हैं, पैसा दो शुभेंदु अधिकारी के सामने गए मुजरा करेंगे नंगा होके. तो that's the same thing that can work for ghar wapsi as well.
In short, basically what is happening is that between your Varna Jati discourse, your population pressure, mind you, the population pressure that is happening today in India is
someone educate me on what are the changes to Waqf Act, since it's not going away completely. If it stays, what are going to be its contours now?
Another thing, because your misery is increasing, your access to resources is decreasing. So between your Varna Jati discourse, you are destroying Hindu unity. What little unity exists, like we discussed, there's not much. Your population pressure is making your things worse. Your loss of social and religious support is complete, and the economic rationale goes against you now. The differential rationale goes.
Just to answer Varun Dev for a while here, they in their hearts deeply believe, absolutely believe that Desai Deepak is casteist.
Goes against you now. You've got the perfect storm. You're screwed. You're screwed, and you're lucky if, like Rome, in the 100 years after the seizure of things, became a Christian majority. You're lucky if you'll survive this century out without becoming a non-Hindu majority country. So best of luck to you. And you know,
not bad points here. If temple freedom doesn't happen, which they kind of oppose these days, if temple freedom doesn't happen, if reservations don't happen, then it might be a problem.
The extent, I just want to give one last example before I finish of how good these people are at propaganda because of the educational gap between you stupid people who go around talking about jati, varna, and all that nonsense, and the sophisticated narrative coming out from those who want to convert you. The Supreme Court today prioritizes written traditions, which is to say of the book, the Bible and the Quran, over oral and cultural.
Great question, Eke Brahmo. Can you mobilize Hindus without temples? Yes. If their religion called Hinduism is only for their fancy dress parties and in a museum protected, whereas the way of life kind of religion is their political party, then yes, शुभेंदु बोलेगा mobilize हो भोसरी के, चलो mobilize होते हैं.
Traditions, which is what most of Hinduism is based on. They have,
which is why we need something called Hindutva. Other religions don't need something called Christianitva because it's already that.
Executed a mind capture of all 32 judges of the Supreme Court. Please understand that. This is your Constantine converting to Islam, to Christianity moment. Please understand that. You are not able to do anything. Your current government is too stupid to even understand the gravity of the problem. They're historically clueless. Their idea of history is restricted to if the Rama's Pushpaka Vimana was actually the Boeing 787 or the Airbus A350.
Gravity. Dude, we can't consider that to be mobilization. That has happened forever. It's a specific gathering that they go to. It's a congregational faith after all. Equate this with people going to a music festival versus those same people fighting on the streets if Trinamool's gundas come to them, come to beat them up. Okay, just because they congregate at NH7 Bacardi festival doesn't mean they'll stand up to a Trinamool gunda.
They don't know which one it was, or if the Brahmastra was actually a nuclear bomb or a neutron bomb or some crap like that. This kind of sophisticated history, if you tell them half the words I just used to you, they won't even understand that. They're that stupid. Please wake up. Okay, and stop all this bullshit you people do, talking about all kinds of nonsense without focusing on a macro. Start focusing on the macro now.
No, wo nahi hoga. I'm still manning decentralized security system. If we had centralized system back then all of India would have been under Mughal control, but we were not, yes, and hence Northeast India and South parts remained unconquered. Yes. Yeah, there are pros and cons to everything.
Understand what is happening to you and why it is happening to you. Post haste now. You need Hindu temples return to Hindu control. Post haste now, you don't build more temples, you start building schools and hospitals.
No one's going to listen to this suggestion, Abhijeet and Mitra. तो सरकार का कुछ करना होगा, ये तो नहीं होगा, because you see, Mamata Banerjee made Hindus happy, or at least thought, which is even worse, thought the way to make Hindus happy is by making a copy paste of Jagannath Mandir, whereas you never see Indian netas thinking that the way to make Muslims or Christians happy is make a church or mosque for them. Christians and Muslims, no, we'll make it on ourselves, bro. You just give us policies that help us as people, as a group, as a community. As a community, Mamata Banerjee's Jagannath temple doesn't help Hindus. And people following this suggestion of Abhijeet Mitra is less plausible than us doing a planchet of Savarkar's Atma and founding a Hindu Mahasabha in West Bengal tomorrow. That would be easier. Yeah. the best rapper in the city in Kolkata is saying real mobilization happened after 16th August 1946. Yes, that's mobilization. That call for mobilization was given by Gopal Patha, not by a religious leader, not by, I guess in that situation you could call it politics in a way. It's a game of survival. So that was real mobilization. That is the only mobilization we're talking about.
Post haste, now you demand that SC certificates will have to be countersigned by your local temple, who will certify that he is a Hindu, he or she is a Hindu, and has at no point of time strayed.
AK Bromo, a very tricky and subtle question. Is people flocking in numbers every Saturday to have khichdi in Shoni Mandir, is it baby step towards Hindutva mobilization? Shoni Mandir, probably not. I think there are enough funds these days to small temples from Trinamool as well to show off their Hindu side as well. But I have noticed lots of Hanuman Mandirs in otherwise Muslim neighborhoods, or randomly a Shiva temple in randomly Muslim neighborhoods, Muslim mohallas and stuff. And if people hang out there, that might be a sign of Hindutva mobilization, because I think my hunch is those temples and a system, let's say even a hangout spot coming up like that in such a place, that's being funded by VHP, probably VHP, Bajrang Dal, or those Sangh affiliated groups, I think.
And I can confirm, in fact, that this person keeps coming to religious class and worshipping at temple and things like that. Do that now. Okay? And stop all this nonsense about Vishwaguru, Atmanirbhar Bharat, and Man Ki Bakwas and Sabka Saath Sabka Bakwas.
Okay. So here's the thing. Abhijeet has shared a lot of views. Now I have agreements on some, I have disagreements on some, but I'm not going to share my disagreements one bit, because when I do a podcast, it's never about my views. It's always about the views of the guests. And I want to make sure that as many as possible viewer questions are answered, because at the end of the day, it's about these lives.
Yes, Gopal Patha would be a radical Hindu. So you need radicalism to counter radicalism. And Gopal Patha, in fact, would be the best of radical Hindus. Because on other days, he was having Muslim friends. He was going about his life. He was not going around murdering every Muslim he ever set his eyes on. But on the day he came, he fucked them up. That's the kind of people we need.
Streams are only about the guest and the viewer. So I don't want to make it a situation where, I ask a question to Abhijeet and then we do that. It's unfair on the live viewers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start asking questions now so that Abhijeet can, and Abhijeet answers pretty short rakhenge, so that, we can ask many more questions, because that way we can be fair. So first question is, which country is safe for Hindus and future refugees?
Advance booking.
None. You literally have nowhere to go. Because of intersectionality, these people got global...
Jairasi, are you a new viewer in our channel? Oh my God. Guys, the old viewers, can you all feel my pain at seeing this question? I have had so many fights with so many viewers. I've lost so many subscribers for defending, for talking about Indians having gun rights like USA. As easy to access guns like in USA. And भोसरी के सब भोसरी वाले हमको आके बोलते हैं कि नहीं, यूएस में स्कूल शूटिंग हो रहा है तो यहाँ पे भी होगा, और बाकी समय भोसरी के बोलेंगे वो यूएसए में होता है, यहाँ पे कभी नहीं होगा. Who cares what happens in USA? But only when it comes to fucking guns, it's going to happen in India exactly the way it happens in USA, okay? Because those fuckers don't know that the gun rights Second Amendment happened in USA in 1791 and school shooting started in like 10-15 years back, because they fucked up their mental health system. Their mental health mafia fucked those things up. Now, if we don't stop our mental health mafia and we have gun rights, then yes, it will happen exactly like it happens in USA, because we are doing everything the way it has happened in USA. Then we are not going to be saved. But I'm saying don't diagnose every fucking kid with ADHD, depression, anxiety, and then have guns in the house. I'm definitely not saying that.
Islamism got onto the intersectionality bandwagon. You are now nowhere. And remember, the intersectional woke types have executed. It's an irreversible institutional capture in the United States. You're not going to find anywhere safe anymore. You're finished. At best, you'll eke out a pathetic existence like Zoroastrians do, 30,000-40,000 people, communities in different parts of the world. And in the end, you will be a glorious chapter of history and nothing more. Probably not even that. If
All right.
you
Will end with a. It will not end with a bang. It will end with a whimper. AIM is saying.
Abrahamize,
No. So let me read the question. So somebody has asked, Abhijit, let's flip the sides. Can you see the Hindus becoming Abrahamized and the most ruthless and intolerant religion known to mankind?
no, because then you destroy what you.
Bro, cut some slack for Alex. He always admits that he got that one wrong, and he hasn't gotten everything else wrong. When you spend decades like that in a situation where you are getting to the bottom of things and no one else is even listening to you, no one takes you seriously, and you are on a roll, you get one or two wrong.
Unique about Hinduism. What you do is understand from the French state how to apply the law.
Oh, Fanidar. More communal rights because of guns. How? Some mullah tries to come and kill me. I have 2 guns in my hands. What the fuck are they going to do to me? Right होगा कहाँ पे? वो गन मुझे दिखाएगा, मैं उसको गन दिखाऊंगा, हो गया बात खत्म. Dada, please some time thinking on this decentralized system versus centralized. Right now, audience can also share thoughts. Right now तो अभी नहीं होगा. अभी ये podcast भी खत्म करना है.
How to apply equality. When the state, see, it's very simple things required. Why does the state control Hindu funds but no other funds? Return that. Why are minorities free to start up institutions as they wish, but majority is not? Demand equality on that. Why does the state not use its monopoly on violence? Why does it not shoot rioters? And why does it not protect people who are victims of rioters? Insist on police reforms. Why does the Supreme Court keep privileging written traditions over oral traditions? Seek judicial reforms. I can tell you right now, I don't want anything to do with Abrahamism. If you want to go ahead and become an Abrahamic chimpanzee, go ahead, I will not.
So actually, you've answered the next question too. The next question was Article 25 to 30 is against Hinduism. Judiciary and government will not change or abolish. What can Hindus do to build and save these? I think you've answered that. So
catch your BJP parliamentarian by his balls and keep crushing them till he goes and develops the gut. He should be more scared of you than he is of his prime minister.
এই বালের কথা এখন আর এরা বলে না, তখন অনেক গরম ছিল. আচ্ছা, I was asking, as a Hindu society, since they are lazy to have mass guns and mullahs will have mass guns, so Hindus will run to the government trying to save. Yeah, even that's not a situation that's going to happen, because that situation not going to happen. No, it's not going to get worse, because that's already the situation. Anyone at this point who wants to kill you already has a gun or a sword. Every fucking political gunda from every political party, every criminal, every potential killer from some religions has a weapon at his discretion. It's not going to get worse if you allow the law-abiding pussies to have guns in their homes.
Your prime minister needs to be scared of you.
All right. So the next was, what is the possible reason behind Hinduism being able to survive onslaughts when other contemporary religions got wiped out? That's a very good question, Abhijeet.
What onslaughts? That's what I've been trying to tell you. The onslaughts were dictated by economic reality. So that's what I've been explaining over the last 2 hours. Was I not clear about it? What part did I specifically leave out in all of it? Destruction is not seizure. Okay. Population movement is not the movement of the elites. Okay. The economics of conversion don't survive. What do you think I've been speaking about for the last hour and a half? Sorry, was I not clear? Did it cut out?
Okay. So can you suggest some books and authors or the sources to read to understand what you're saying even more in detail?
No, because a lot of it is going into land records and shit like that, because it's too many different papers.
Yes.
To do this presentation, I had to read almost 96 different...
Exactly. This is the kind of problem even I face when someone asks me which specific book to read for this particular topic. And for land records and stuff, you have to read Sumit Guha, rigorous, insane anthropology stuff. This is kind of a similar problem I've faced while discussing music even, you know. Many younger people ask me, which software can help me make Western classical music, epic Western classical stuff, Hans Zimmer stuff, the way you do? and first of all I get pissed off with the question, and then I don't often answer, or if the conversation, the situation is that polite, I go ahead and say that it cannot happen with one software. Do you know how much storage I have? I have 2 external hard disks which are externally powered because they run in real time while I am making the music. 4 TB each. All of them are full of music production softwares. Then I have 500 GB SSD drive C, and I have another 2.5 TB inside in drive D, E, F, G, H, etc. And my externally powered external hard disks go into an externally powered USB hub because it's happening in real time. So at any given moment, I have access to about 12 fucking TB of music production softwares and music VST instruments. Okay, which is synthesizer. I mean, any instrument or any tones that I can play with my synthesizer here. So and so you realize how many softwares I have, and no software is fully complete. From every software, there are like 5-6 tones I can use anytime at best. So that's how that sound will happen. That's how that arrangement will happen when you explore so many softwares.
Not almost, exactly 96 different journal articles and things like that, and data records and things like that. See, stop asking me these questions about books and authors. Nobody's collating this stuff for you. You understand that, right? And that is the problem. Indians never collate. There's no one book that's going to give you knowledge. Stop behaving like an Abrahamic. It's only an Abrahamic that seeks that one book that's going to answer all their life problems.
All right.
Yes.
So
yes, there's no magic pill. There's no magic software. Dada, do you use FL Studio, Boomer? Yeah, I don't. But when I was starting music production and was trying to fool around with music softwares in the beginning, since FL Studio used to be really popular at Kolkata in 2009, 10 and stuff, 10, 11 even. I tried doing it with FL Studio, but then back then my computer was really weak, so I could not do anything with it. Up until like 2012 or 13, I had a computer with just 256 MB of RAM. So, and then later I realized that FL Studio is very, very weird. It's nothing like other music softwares at all. So I started with Reaper then, and for music production I used Studio One for a while because it came for free with my synthesizer, with my MIDI keyboard, and now I'm fully using Cubase.
do you think Russia and China have used communism in a way in which they were able to maintain their demography, cultural views?
Milton Patel, Indians don't collate. If so, what is Vedas? Vedas is Indians don't collate is a present tense sentence. Vedas were written 3,000 years back.
Use better, i.e., does Hinduism need a
Yes, there is a shastra called Chaurya Shastra, which teaches people to steal, thieve, which is why people don't understand that shastras are not just religious texts; they are just handbooks for a lot of stuff. And when we asked that S.N. Balagangadhara fan guest of ours, he thought I was talking about Loha, steel.
communism like backbone to only sustain itself but also strive?
How did Russia maintain their demographic? Russia converted to Christianity, did it not?
Yeah. I was just going to say
China.
that.
Yeah, China, communism is a religion in a sense, but also understand China was one of the biggest targets of Christian conversion, and they were succeeding. Communism actually stopped that more because it was anti-religion. But understand, there's nothing left of Chinese religion anymore. Communism also wiped out Chinese religion. So when communism ends and the anti-religion stance ends, you will actually see China Christianize. There was never a Muslim threat to China per se. So that.
All right. So this question is asked 2-3 times. So I'm just using one. So a lot of people ask, don't you think religion in just general old school religions, all of them are dying at different paces? Because see, let me draw this analogy for you. The reason Islam is dying slower than maybe Christianity is because there is a gap of the of 600 years between when Islam came up and when Christianity came up. But if you look at the trajectory is the same with every religion. So don't you think eventually all old religions are going to die? That's just a natural way. And in that sense, the
question here is,
paganism comes in.
I understood the question. So I'll tell you what. 600-year gap the post-Christian West. Now, first of all, understand, we now realize that religion is an extremely important form of social control. Because post-religion is something we have negotiated with over the last 30,000 years, and it's imperfect, but it's still okay. You look at a post-religious society like America or Britain and the kind of wokeism and SJWism going on out there, political correctness and SWJism are a tool of social control in post-religious societies. Understand, a post-religious society is an extremely dangerous, bleak one. You're going back to pogroms. You're going back to pogrom. Right now, it is only verbal and online pogroms. Ultimately, it will become real pogroms. Okay, number one. Number two, understand, post-religious West is going to happen quickly, but they are in alignment with Islam, which is not going to get post-religious anytime soon. So you have that gap in between. So unless you are basically willing to wait to first get Christianized, because remember, third world Christianity is very different from first world Christianity, or Islamized, and then wait for Christianity to become post-religious in the West, is a product of industrialization. You aren't going to reach there because you haven't industrialized. You're going to suffer third world Christianity and third world Islam. The UAE and Oman and places like that are enlightened today because they've become they've become industrial societies. They haven't yet become post-religious, but they've become industrial societies. So they've set the path to it. You aren't going to become post-religious. You're a third world shithole. You're fundamentally a third world shithole. You are not. Please don't extrapolate.
It's still better than using Sanskrit words to sell your hot shit products. Wait, I was trying to point one interesting comment came. Yeah, Ashkacham, religion is the opium of masses is not entirely correct. Actually, asceticism is the opium of the masses.
Western examples without context here. Industrialize and then we can talk.
Okay, Abhijeet, what is the reason Islam and Christianity were not able to assimilate into Hinduism and Jesus and Allah became a part of Hinduism?
What? How did Jesus and Allah ever become a part of Hinduism?
No, that's what they're saying. So what the question is that usually what happens in the history of India is whenever some outside meme enters the larger meme of India, that meme became a part of the Hindu pantheon and we just expanded our pantheon.
No, we never did.
In the case of Christianity,
it's very curious that, all the other gods that may have come in got absorbed. But where do you see Christianity, Jesus ever being absorbed into the Hindu pantheon? Where do you see Allah ever being absorbed into the Hindu pantheon? At best, people will go to
Ramakrishna Mission,
the Chishti Dargah or something like that. That is not the same as deifying Allah. No,
it almost is. Hindus pray in front of dargahs, pray for their good health and stuff, for their exams and stuff. और बाकी क्या रह गया? उर्दू नहीं किया इसलिए मुस्लिम नहीं हुआ. Deify to ho gaya.
It's not happened. It may have happened if there was give and take, but since there was no give and take, it's not really happened. What you have is a very artificially contrived narrative created by the Congress since the 1920s, 30s of the so-called Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb, which never realistically existed. We existed lives of extreme tension in parallel with each other. There was no intermingling.
All right. I don't know if I think it's a query because look, people will ask questions. So this one is like, do these two facts have anything to do with religiosity or dharma? Unlike England and mainland Europe, why didn't Sri Lanka ever have an empire in India? And two, why was Burma such a strong empire? And why did Southeast Asian empires have such a martial culture?
What does this have to do with this thing?
Yeah, that's the question, right? The question is, do you think it has anything to do with religion?
No, it has very little to do with religion. The strength or weakness of empires depends on economics. The religion of an empire depends on economics.
Oh,
okay. So it has nothing to do with religion.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now, so somebody has said now that there are some Hindu converts.
And just quickly, if you want to understand why England had an empire, then please go and read Barbara Tuchman's A Calamitous 14th Century. You'll get most of your answers out there. The population ratios, the population differential between France and England, the sort of over-dependence on human power as opposed to human power compensation mechanisms like the Welsh longbow and things like that the British used, the militarization of British society and things like that. So go check that out. Sri Lanka and Burma are very complex answers. They'll take too long. But it has nothing to do with dharma. It has to do entirely with economics.
All right. So I will twist this question. So I'll say, could we see that maybe the intellectual renaissance that we are looking in 21st century Hinduism or Dharma, whatever we call you, maybe it might start coming from outside India where there is more freedom and there are no 295 A's and 153 A's to stop those kinds of inquiries?
No, no.
I agree.
Where are you seeing a great Western dharmic guru?
ISKCON and stuff.
And Russia, I can
Perhaps.
tell you, the Hindu community there, you have tiny little pockets of them.
Mhm.
They are not even recognized by their own state. In Russia, you can only have 4 recognized religions that existed before 1000 AD or something. So you can have Judaism,
Ashkacham, don't recommend so much books. That's Western style capitalism.
Christianity, Buddhism, and Islam. That's it. All other religions are not allowed. If you exist, no benefits to you and things like that. No.
Okay, so let me see some other question. Okay, this is, I think, about the first half of your chat. Somebody had a query and they must have typed it then. So they say, Abhijeet, you talked about how the Christians use theology to push the pagans out. Why weren't the Christians in Egypt vulnerable to the same tactics? I think this was asked during the first half.
So Christians use theology amongst other tools to push pagans out. What does that have to do with Egyptian Christians vulnerable to the same tactics? I didn't understand this question. What's the equivalence you're drawing? Christians have theology. They're obviously not going to be vulnerable to theology, right?
Okay,
Because
so
only
this
it's
question is it safe to say it all comes down to acquire, transfer of wealth and land as the onset of any forced cultural mutation?
Yes, it is. It's quite safe to say that. Okay, a lot of it depends on climate change, on your geopolitical context. Remember, like I said, all multi-causal. It doesn't just come from transfer of wealth and land. It is wealth of land intersecting with your political reality or with your geopolitical reality, your own climate. If you are a arid land suitable for pasture, then
he seems to ignore all these valuable data points, valuable categories, genres, kinds of data points, only when it comes to caste. There only it's evil people discriminating against other people randomly for no fucking apparent reason. These are realities which affect caste also.
then pastoralists will come to you. If you are a fertile land with lots of agricultural surplus, then only their elites will come to you. So it's like I said, multi-causal. I don't know why this message seems to keep getting lost. Multi-causal.
तो caste भाई multi-causal है कि नहीं?
Okay, somebody's so nice. They've said, Your Grace, with reservation and welfare of our current government structure, isn't being Hindu actually incentivized? Why such a huge threat of conversion then?
That is what I just told you. It is not a unique this thing. Reservation is for you, fine. But understand, are you getting free hospitalization? Are you getting schools? Are you getting access to XYZ? And by the way, when you convert, you're losing none of the benefits. So it's double dipping. If you
Exactly what I was saying. कि अगर कोई पैसे से आज के दिन में घर वापसी करना चाहता है, he is fighting foreign funding for conversions to Christianity, and he is fighting Indian state who is taking our money and funding poor people anyway. उसके ऊपर तुम एक और पैसा निकालोगे अपने पॉकेट से, जबकि तुम्हारा पॉकेट ऑलरेडी खाली हो गया है टैक्स देके, और बोलोगे कि वापस आ जाओ हिंदुइज्म में.
turn Christian, you can, right now it's this. If you're Christian, you get this. Where are you going to go?
Okay, the next question. Because
Yeah, I'm
follow up
getting
to what...
feeling, was I breaking up? Because a lot of these questions seems to indicate that people weren't listening or I wasn't clear enough. Was I not clear enough?
अरे भाई, clear English comprehension skills is very too much of a demand. No retrieve. He's saying AIM is funded by people who want to push that caste narrative. I don't think he's funded by those people. He's of course friends with people in BJP who believe in the same things that he does. He is well-meaning. He just has a wrong notion of history. He's basically the Ankit Shah of Raitas. Ankit Shah is very well-meaning. He loves India. He loves Hinduism. He's not casteist. He would never look at a Dalit person and say, "Ka hai wo Sri ke." But his notion of history on most things is absolutely fucked up. And Abhijeet Mitra's notion of caste is absolutely fucked up. But they are well-meaning people.
Well, sometimes what happens is you tend to use certain words that are not clear to people as in at a conceptual level, because you have to define things that you're using. It's okay. People will listen to this 2-3 times and they'll get it. But still, we should always take questions. So if Hindus are given control of their temples, what governance structure do you recommend? Giving it to individuals might be difficult.
भाई
legally
इसके
and
पहले कौन सा
politically.
गवर्नेंस स्ट्रक्चर था? इसके पहले कौन सा गवर्नेंस स्ट्रक्चर था? Just give it back.
Okay, no, chal, abhi main, so I'll push back on this. So I'll give you an example. I'll give you a very tangible example of this. So I'm someone who actually supports temple freedom, like you. But there is a genuine problem in this. So there are some big temples, right? So when it comes to a big temple under government control is a loss-making proposition for Hindu dharma and the temple itself, because temples are driven by economics too. And when it comes to a big temples, jinki manyata zyada hoti hai, they tend to have a lot of pilgrimage, and unki hundi ki collection and other peripheral activities or other donations to the temple, etc., tend to be a lot more. But I'll give you an example. Hinduism's strength is not just big temples. See, Hinduism is a unique religion which has some Abrahamic traits, but is also decentralized at the same time. Now, what happens to 100 small temples? So, now hear me out. Now, small temples may not have a very big hundi collection because small temple hai, sirf 5 gaon ke log jate honge. Now, they need government support. Now, if we free them,
first of all, bringing up वो गरीब मंदिरों का क्या होगा is the same as bringing up गरीब लोगों का क्या होगा in every fucking conversation and then obfuscating the entire topic. If the villagers of that village cannot afford a temple, then they shouldn't have to afford a temple. The people of the country cannot pay taxes for making that temple survive. Or when temple freedom happens, why can't a gigantic temple in one district or in one location of one state take care of some of the small temples? Temple freedom is going to leave a lot of money in the hands of the temples, right? Just stop the state making the state do these things without consent, with leakage, with inefficiencies, and at the hands of a fucking babu. That's all I'm saying.
and government doesn't support them, they will die. Isn't that a loss to Hinduism?
Okay, no, it isn't. And I'll tell you why. If you look at the net collection, it's enough to sustain you. Balance of the big versus the small. Because each, according to their own means, it will rationalize. You understand? You can then, if you want, create a structure to set up a Hindu Charitable Endowments Board comprising the top Hindu industrialists of India, who then apportion and decide where the revenues are going to go to and rationalize the revenues. Create
Jairasi, no, because when the babu or the whoever the government servant is who distributes that money to those small temples, you don't know if that money is going into the right hands. How do you know there isn't money getting skimmed off in collaboration because of a collaboration between the babu and the guys or the guy who receives that money? So it has to be ground up, and the community has to pay for that temple to survive. And let's see if your dharma is that important to you. That is the main argument, no? That dharma is apparently above money, above safety. So dikhao dharma kitna above money hai. Save up, and in fact your taxes should go down if temple freedom happens, and temples in fact pay for a lot of your stuff and with better quality, and therefore you don't have to pay that much taxes in GST and stuff to the government. Use all that money to save your temple because of your dharma. But तुमको जो चीज चाहिए तुम खुद से नहीं अर्न करोगे, थर्ड पार्टी को बोलोगे किसी और से पैसा लेके तुमको दे. ये हर चीज में ये चुतियापा कैसे चल सकता है?
Assured college admissions for the children of priests, assured school admissions for the children of priests. Okay, which will come about because you're setting up Hindu colleges and things like that.
Exactly. There are so many temples already running. Then Kushal's argument doesn't apply to a lot of things.
You then set up Hindu hospitals and things like that, the social support mechanisms. Get the industrialists, get a board of industrialists to run it, for all I care.
Okay, this is too funny, this question. Abhijeet, should I move out of India by studying Mihir Sharma? In your words, I feel very insecure.
Yes, you should. You should. Because at least abroad, you may lose your religion over the next 100 years. In India, you'll probably get slaughtered.
Oh.
What happened to BJP workers in Bengal is ultimately going to happen to you by the end of the century. Get the hell out.
Hmm. Okay, so this is a very interesting question. So let me ask it. Which religion would you take on between Islam and Christianity in India post Hinduism?
Well, I think I'd rather commit harakiri. I may be an atheist, though I identify as a Hindu. I will not touch either of these religions. Full stop. I'm very clear about this.
Let me see if there are any. Okay, this is okay. We have answered this many times, but do you think freedom of speech and blasphemy keep Hinduism alive? I think the question is: does freedom of speech or does blasphemy keep Hinduism alive?
They handpicked am I wrong?
Hindus keep Hinduism alive. The strength of a religion is its people. When you look after your own people, that is what keeps it alive. Okay, it is not the freedom or the blasphemy that keep Hinduism alive. You
All right,
invest in human beings.
One last question. I think I've covered all the relevant ones. Has Christianity killed more people than Hitler?
Several times. Why is that a binary? Hitler is part of the Christian kill count.
All right, so I need to explain this before we end this. A lot of people actually do not know that small temples are supported by the government. See, this is the problem where people don't read government documents. So I'll give you an actual fund in India. So in Maharashtra, there is something called the Tirtha Kshetra Fund. Now go and study what happens in Maharashtra. It is called Tirtha Kshetra Fund. How much money was allocated during the BJP government's time and how it was allocated, what it did to the small temples. This is my problem. Look, I'm actually reacting to the live stream right now because see, people give emotional arguments. I don't give emotional arguments. I give factual arguments. And I'm telling you, every state government has different schemes. Now, I am willing to concede that not every state government might have it, but Maharashtra does. And it actually, now that fund is totally at the discretion of the state government. Now, the BJP government put money in the Tirtha Kshetra Fund. Now, I don't know if the Mahavikas Aghadi is going to put money in the Tirtha Kshetra Fund. That is a valid question that I'm willing to accept. But just to inform everybody over here, there are such funds that are actually helping small temples because they just don't have that kind of a collection to sustain themselves in the current model, because big temples still sustain themselves purely off of their daily collections.
My going through of revenue seems to indicate that collections vastly outnumber the number of temples that need to be supported. Number one. Number two, there is a hesitancy to give because I don't give to temples. I slip it because a priest taking something from this thing is liable to criminal whatever. So I slip it in when people aren't looking. But as a rule, I never give to temples because I don't want that money going to the government, period. What you can do is you can do it as a tithe, like the way Germany does it. If you're if you belong to the Protestant church, there's a certain tithe that goes to the church from your pay and things like that. You can do that. What's preventing you from doing it? In which case, you also get privileged access. So, for example, let's say assume there's a Chanakyapuri Durga temple. Okay, if you are a devotee of the Chanakyapuri Durga temple, you have a tithe to the Chanakyapuri Durga temple. When when your kid wants to go to school, they get special privileged entry into the Chanakyapuri Durga temple school. When you want to go to college, you get special reserved entry into the Chanakyapuri Durga temple college. Tithe it. See, it's no point saying that you're Hindu when you're not going to give to your temple. I am an atheist, but I will still put money in the hands of priests. Because I need it. See, that temple is reassurance for me. It is the temple and Hinduism that ensure that I can be a gay atheist man in India. So there are a lot of systems of dealing with this. Tithing is one of them. But understand, irrespective, if you're going to continue to be a backward economic shithole with slogans substituting for an economy and economic growth, if not now, if not in the next 100 years, you're going to get finished off in the next 500 years because you don't know what the dynamics then are going to be. Okay, so it is all based on continuing.
Fair enough. Time for some nuance then. He's basically saying that if we remain this socialist, then Hinduism is not going to survive. That seems oddly similar to what was coming to my mind for the last 1 or 2 years, that libertarianism is the path forward for Hindutva, and Hindutva is definitely the path forward for Hinduism. Hello. Yeah, my internet was gone. So I have been thinking my idea of Hindutva 2.0, which includes libertarianism, which is libertarianism. But I'm claiming that that is a prerequisite for Hinduism or Hindutva to be effective. And Hindutva being effective means survival of Hinduism. And AIM is saying if we keep on being socialist, then Hinduism is not going to survive. So I think in the end, we are actually saying the same things and agreeing, in fact. Hinduism will end. He's saying that India is going to keep on being socialist. I have hopes that it won't. But if it does, then probably. Because if we go on spending money for our own oppression, our own destruction, and if we pay salaries to people who recognize castes which divide Hindus, तो कहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? मतलब this is not even bringing a knife to a gunfight. This is poisoning yourself before going to a gunfight. पीयूष, तुम तो अंकित शाह के फैन हो भाई. अंकित शाह से क्या सीखा आज तक? That's one of the things that Ankit actually says very correctly. कैसे पीयूष तुमने अंकित शाह से क्या सीखा? सऊदी फंडिंग क्या था? पेट्रो डॉलर क्या था फिर?
Wealth. It's not enough to go pray to Lakshmi. Your economic policies are the most anti-Lakshmi policies. Every economic document that comes out from the government is a spit on the face of Lakshmi. It is a perversion. It is a Kabbalist.
पीयूष, sorry for being rude, but देखो, सऊदी से इतने साल तक फंडिंग आ रहा था, प्लस यहाँ पे सब कुछ फ्री में मिलता है, गरीब है, उसके ऊपर से कास्ट में भी मुस्लिम लोगों को भी कास्ट बेनिफिट्स भी मिलता है, और फिर ये है कि मुस्लिम होने के भी बेनिफिट्स है माइनॉरिटी. तो इतना सारा फोकट का माल उसे दिया जा रहा है सिर्फ, और फिर उनका हज यात्रा भी फ्री है. उनको बोला जा रहा है तू सिर्फ मुस्लिम बन, ये ले पैसे, ये लो, दिखा तू कितना मुस्लिम है, और थोड़ा पैसे, ये ले पैसे, दिखा तू कितना मुस्लिम है. तो वो मुस्लिम नहीं रहेगा तो कौन मुस्लिम रहेगा भाई? कहाँ पॉवर्टी है, उसके ऊपर भी पॉवर्टी है, गांडू है. इसलिए हमारा कोई चुतिया इंसेंटिवाइजेशन नहीं है हिंदू रहने का या फिर पढ़ाई करने का, फिर भी हिंदूज आर सक्सेसफुल, व्हिच इज व्हाई लिबर्टेरियनिज्म इज द बेस्ट फकिंग पाथ फॉरवर्ड फॉर हिंदुइज्म, बिकॉज नोबडी एल्स, the weak fuckers don't survive in a libertarian society, only Hindus do, and Jews maybe.
Satanistic worship of Dardreshwari.
Okay, that line was really interesting. Okay, you know what? I think we've covered as many questions as were possible, because the question.
क्या पीयूष, क्या बर्थ रेट? वो डेजर्ट में बैठ के उसका बर्थ रेट ज्यादा था या इंडिया का ब्यूटीफुल क्लाइमेट में ज्यादा बर्थ रेट था?
Are never ending, and a lot of them repeat in their statements. So here's the thing, guys. So we will end today's discussion. Now, I had many questions myself for Abhijeet, but you know what? If we started doing that, we would go on for 1 hour. Now I'll do this, and this is because, like I said, I always want to make sure that Abhijeet gets to speak the most, and then you guys get to ask Abhijeet the most questions, because this platform is always about the guest and the viewers. My views, I can always give my views later on. So I will respond to Abhijeet in a monologue. And I will respond to, again, using my understanding of psychology, anthropology, sociology, and political working over the years. And then maybe we can conclusion. I subscribe to the channel, share the video, like the video. If you're scared, leave your comments in the discussion below the video, stating how scared you are after listening to Abhijeet. If you like what I'm doing over here, become a member.
राज्यों के प्रति.
Guys, someone explain to me, why is this going on in the middle of the night? And even yesterday it was. So what's okay? I have a conspiracy theory. It just came to my mind. Unless someone has a credible explanation of why this is going on in the night, is there a security threat? Did they hear some whispers, and what's the exact term intelligence people use? Has there been chatter about potential attacks during the daytime? Is that why they are doing it in the night? What's the point of this?
आपका अलग अलग रवैया रहता है, समझा जा सकता है जहां विपक्ष की सरकार
Gravity is saying if tomorrow India becomes libertarian, the Muslims will start fleeing the country then. 100%. 100%. कोई फोकट का माल नहीं, इंसेंटिवाइजेशन नहीं, और उसके तरफ से जिन लोगों को आज तक डिसइंसेंटिवाइज किया जा रहा था, उनके पास बहुत मजे हैं, फ्रीडम है, भागो बोसरी के, भागो भागो।
सरकारें हैं, उन सरकारों के प्रति आपका भेदभाव रहता है, समझा जा सकता है। लेकिन जिस राज्य में आपकी डबल इंजन की सरकार है, वहां तो आपकी दोहरी जिम्मेदारी है। दोहरी जिम्मेदारी सुरक्षा की, दोहरी जिम्मेदारी रोजगार देने की, दोहरी जिम्मेदारी उस राज्य के विकास की, दोहरी जिम्मेदारी उस राज्य के किसानों के विकास की। आपकी तो दोहरी जिम्मेदारी है। लेकिन जहां आपकी डबल इंजन की सरकार है, वहां ये लड़ाई झगड़े फसाद कब रुकेंगे मानवर? उत्तर प्रदेश की हालत देख लीजिए। कोई त्योहार आता है, होली आए तो 10 दिन पहले।
No, you are coming up with these arguments, right? Okay, Brahmo has no, I mean, significant journalist asked these questions. What is happening? Why the fuck is this happening? कोई explanation नहीं आया इसके बारे में? अजीब बात है।
बवाल शुरू, दिवाली आए तो 10 दिन पहले से बवाल शुरू, रामनवमी आए तो 10 दिन।
विवेक, आओ कभी वेस्ट बंगाल, देखो लेबर वायलेशन कितना अच्छे से हैंडल किया है स्टेट ने। टू प्रिवेंट पीपल फ्रॉम कमिंग आउट टू द स्ट्रीट्स में भी, हु नोज व्हाई हैजंट एनी जर्नलिस्ट टॉक्ड अबाउट दिस और आस्क्ड दिस? पूछना पड़ेगा किसी को। ओके देन, थैंक्स अ लॉट फॉर दिस, फॉर joining me in this discussion, guys. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of brainstorming. We used a lot of our faculties. It was very constructive, I think, very fruitful in the end. Tomorrow's last session, lot of pending work. Yeah, thanks guys, thank you for joining. Good night.
যদি সবাই ফিরে যায়, ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা সবাই ফিরে যায়, যদি গহন পথে যাওয়ার কালে কেউ ফিরে না যায়, তবে পথের কাটা তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে, তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে, তবে একলা চলো রে। যদি আলো না ধরে, ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা আলো না ধরে, যদি ঝড় বাদলে আধার রাতে দুয়ার দেয় ঘরে, তবে বজ্রানলে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে, আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে, তবে একলা চলো রে। একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো।